Good afternoon. Welcome to the June 19th, 2023 meeting of the Design Review Committee. I'd like to call the meeting to order. The DRC is the Subcommittee of Historic Zoning. The meeting is informal and designed to guide applicants through the process of obtaining a certificate of appropriateness or COA for projects within the city's historic districts in light of the historic design guidelines. Applicant participation in DRC meetings is voluntary but highly recommended. Changes made or suggestions taken by the applicant based on the discussions with the DRC are the applicant's choice, but the DRC makes no representation as to whether any changes or suggestions made during the meeting will be approved by the voting body, which is the Historic Zoning Commission. There are 15 items on the afternoon's agenda. When the item is called, please introduce yourself and generally describe your item in about 3 to 5 minutes. Our first item today, and we're going to substitute when those applicants come in, because there's we need to make it a substitution. So the last 4 items will move up at the time that they come. But the first item today will be discussion of addition at principal at 106 Lewisburg Avenue. Noel Jones is the applicant. And if you'll hit the button on that speaker. Great, thank you.
Good afternoon. The intended project at 106 Lewisburg is to provide a way for my parents to age in place.
Good for you.
They need a garage and a bigger living space for family gatherings, a remodel of a master bathroom closer to the existing bedroom. There'll be an elevator added, and trying to preserve the footprint of the existing structure as much as possible, and then adding to the back of the house there. But would like your input on the design that we've submitted to see if there's anything that we need to change.
Okay, thank you. Emily?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let me get this pulled up for us. So the property at 106 Lewisburg Avenue is in the Lewisburg Avenue Historic District and was constructed in 1915. The proposal includes an addition to the rear portion of the building to serve as a garage and bonus room. The addition is properly placed on the rear, which is keeping in line with the guidelines. The lot square footage is 16,557 square feet. The existing footprint of the house is 2,160 square feet, which equates to 13% of the lot coverage. With the proposed addition, the footprint will become 3,061 square feet, which equates to 18.5% of lot coverage. The size of the addition is also in keeping in line with the guidelines. On the left elevation, above the garage door on the second floor, a window planter box will be utilized, and this is the addition. We saw on, and staff looked at the setback. So on the submitted plans, you have a 5-foot setback. Because this property is in the R4 residential district, that means it needs to be a 7-foot setback. So the plans will just need to be altered to reflect that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Comments from anybody?
Comments from me.
The question I have, what is the square footage of the addition?
What, didn't I say 900 square feet or 901 somewhere? Maybe
Let's
I
see.
didn't. Maybe I was dreaming.
Well, I did some subtraction. I came up with 901, but I didn't see anything that actually showed me the dimensions of the exactly what the square footage was going to be on the addition.
So it was just, okay, just the subtraction. That's where I came up with.
Noel, do you know what the square
Yeah.
footage is going to be?
I don't. Let's scroll down. Was there some dimensions on one of the floor plans? I want to say it was 24 in depth and about 30 in width, maybe. Something along those lines.
There's square footage on the as-built.
Because there were two places given for the square footage of the residence. One said that it was 1,930 square feet, and the other said 2,160.
I
Now,
don't know where those came from because they may just be the impervious roof surface. The house totals about 3,800 square feet in total.
well, because we're talking about the footprint.
Footprint.
Only, and you're saying the footprint's that large.
No, the total square footage of the entire house, about 3,800. So, and it's 2 stories, so pretty safely take half of that, be close to the,
So, but
Footprint.
I think 50% applies to the footprint, not to the full square footage.
gotcha.
But if it's only 901 square feet.
You're okay.
You're okay either way.
Okay.
So I'm just trying to clarify, what
Yeah.
the addition is
Yeah.
and what the footprint is.
Well, here's one that says on the main is 1,930 square feet plus the covered porch of 144. So that's your little over 2,000, 2,100 square feet.
So it's plus
footprint.
plus the covered porch then.
That's what I think.
Okay.
Because it's given two places with two different numbers.
It just
Okay.
needs to be, when you come back for the voting meeting, it just needs to
Have the architect
show the
clarify all
dimensions.
the square
Show the
footage and
dimensions in
percentage.
addition to the 7-foot
Okay,
property setback.
okay.
And
All right.
and the 50% is of the footprint, not
Yeah.
of the total
Not
square
total
footage.
square footage.
But you should be okay, 900 and something square feet. So.
Okay.
Anything else? Got anything, Tyler?
No.
Good.
All right.
Done. Thank you. Okay, next item is discussion of additions, principal and accessory at 345 4th Avenue South, Kevin Coffey and the Rabners. Come on down.
Just the four guys I wanted to see.
We're back.
Okay, Tana, here we go. All right, Mr. Coffey, go ahead.
All right, so just a little bit of background. I'm going to give you some numbers to start out with, so we can kind of get those out of the way, and then we'll equate them to the plan. The existing house coverage that includes the porches is 2258. We are proposing, again, if some of you were here before, you remember the two parts. There was an addition proposal and then a screen porch. And we're kind of weighing the options. But our additions that are proposed, the heated part of it is 1146, and that comes out around 51%. I think last time we were at 49, but redid the numbers a little bit, and it's around 51. And the screen porch that we're showing in this is 360, which would put the whole number up to 1506 and would be roughly 66.7%, 67% total addition. Garage coverage presently is 827. The garage addition is about 827 in coverage, and that makes the total accessory around 1696. So what I did was I did that garage addition at 49% of the coverage of the house without the screen porch. So just the coverage, everything besides that, it's at 49. Lot area, over 25,000 feet. So with our largest scheme and drives and everything, we're covering about 36%. Somewhere around slightly less than 9,000 feet, 8935. So those are the numbers. And so based on that, we can go to plans. So Joey, if you could find right at the beginning the site plan. So I think that's something. Yeah, so this is a site plan that shows the existing conditions. And wanted to show you kind of how much space there is on this lot. It's a really big lot. Neighboring lots are also very large. The next slide shows an aerial, probably a little hard to see, but in gray, I showed the additions, where they would be and how they sit on the lot. Take particular note as well on the houses that border and how extensive the development is behind the houses, especially the two to the left if we're facing the front, and then the house to the right has basically, it was a very similar type of house to the one we have, and then it's been added on very squarely on the back. I'm not making any judgments about whether you guys approved any of those or what the deal is. That's just what exists and that's what is there. The house that you can't really see that's two up from this really covers a lot of territory. It's got a long connector on the back, so it really pushes to the back of the property. So I'm just showing this to show you that we're not really an extreme for the street of pushing back the way we are. The one thing I do think we're doing that's advantageous for our lot is going out in that shotgun style. It creates a large open space to the back right of the lot. And you'll notice a lot of them, they come out like right in the middle and they bisect the lot, or they come out really square and then they end up with the square backyard. We're kind of doing a shotgun approach. So this hasn't changed a ton since the last time we did draw in the garage a little bit. The hyphen space that was in between is a bit smaller. And one other thing that you guys asked us to show for this time is in the elevations. So that's fairly far down, Joey. Let's stop at that one too, just for a second, because I think you had a question about this. This shows the Sanborn map from 1914. And so the part that's shaded in the slightly darker yellow is directly from the Sanborn map. And then I kind of superimposed where our additions are. You can see at one time they had 5 structures on the site. None of those other 4 remain. And then Brian, the carriage house unfortunately does not sit right on the spot where the old one was. As far as I can tell, the Sanborn maps are surprisingly accurate with that stuff. So I'm pretty sure it's a totally new structure that doesn't have anything to do with what was there before. So I did show a left elevation. I think concern that we heard last time was about variation along that left side, even though you couldn't really see it through the garage. Carriage house. So, keep going. This is the rear elevation. Below is existing, above is new. And then the one next to it is the right side elevation, above new, below existing. And here's where we get in. This is the left side that you would see if the carriage house was not there. The reason there's 2 variations is that the bottom one shows an existing roof line that was, I'm sure at one time a porch, but it shows up in the 1913 Sanborn map, and it has that sloped roof. We like to keep evidence of those pieces over time. However, in this case, architecturally, the one on top is cleaner to kind of re-expose the original corner of the back house where that little notch is, and then just do a more typical roof that lands into it. I'm okay with either, and actually neither one of those is going to be seen from anywhere except in the little courtyard that's on the side. We've also, I think there was a comment about stepping down on the site. The site does have quite a bit of grade difference, and we have 2 step downs in the plan that basically equate to the rooms in the back on the left being 2 feet 6 inches below the main level finish floor. So those are some of the highlights, and would definitely be open to questions. I know there's a lot here.
Joey?
Thank you. Yes, this is the second time this project has come to DRC, and I want to thank the applicant for submitting a lot more of, responding to the comments that was received or were given last time and giving more views of the elevations. The biggest question I had was the footprint, and I think the applicant has done a good job of showing what the historic footprint of the home is, and the guidelines do limit additions to principal historic structures to 50%. So this is within about 1%, one little over 1% if you include the screen, the covered porch, within that 50%. So it's not too far off, and also the lot coverage, there's ample room and was well within that 35% lot coverage. So happy to answer any questions.
Okay, who wants to comment?
I can go. So a question on some of these numbers. You said 36% coverage, and did you say that included driveways and everything?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
And that's the ordinance for historic, or the guideline is 35% of lot coverage, doesn't include driveways
No,
and such.
not,
It's just
not
building.
hardscape, just overall
Okay.
footprint.
Yeah, I was thinking, so you should be well under the lot
Yeah,
coverage
wait.
by a long shot. And then Joey was just saying he thought you were around 51%, but that didn't include the screen porch.
Correct.
Okay, the screen porch puts you up to 60, a little less than 67.
That's correct.
Okay. Yeah, this is always kind of a conundrum of sorts because, folks with big lots and a smaller principal house, it seemed like they somewhat kind of get penalized because they have a small house on a big lot, and those are usually the people who need the most addition. But at the same time, the guidelines are written so that they're supposed to be as equitable as possible to everybody.
Sure.
So I'm not sure I have a huge opinion on it either way, except that the guidelines were kind of voted on and approved by the neighbors. So trying to hold to those numbers is really what we're tasked to do. But we're also here, if you met all the rules, then you wouldn't have any reason to come see us. So I'm sympathetic to the idea that a little bit of overage might be appropriate for a lot that big, considering your neighbors and such. If we did the calcs on the neighbors' lots, I would say they're probably pretty close. But with the screen porch, it seems a bit more kind of inflammatory in terms of the numbers. If we were talking 51, 52, 53 with the screen porch, I'd be more apt to kind of respond to that positively. 17% over seems like it's a big ask. So I don't know. Love to hear from other folks. I think design-wise, there's a lot going on. It's a lot of house that goes really far back into the lot, but I don't necessarily have a problem with that. I don't think a lot of this is that visible from the street, but it's a lot of details. And for a house that is kind of simply formed, in terms of the massing, all the step downs and roof lines and things, I understand why they're there, but it can also be kind of busy next to what the historic house is somewhat simple. So anyways, that's my comments.
Okay. Josh?
Sure, yeah, I think the 51 on this lot does not bother me at all. I mean, I know we've approved more than that. I'd be curious as to how high a percentage we've gone to. 67 seems like a lot more than we've done before. And I think the thing that is challenging to me is then the accessory structures really getting substantially expanded as well. So I don't know. I just have heartburn on it going that high with the screen porch.
I know personally we've gone higher, so,
Okay. Bring us some examples, remind us. I guess.
well, on Lewisburg, we,
Yeah, yes.
we did more. And actually on a tighter lot, the lot had more space in the front yard. I mean, I think this
a log
is,
cabin?
No.
no, this
No.
was the Tandy Rice house
And-
originally that we added on to Sims Walters. And it's always I mean, I know there's a fine line between precedent and case by case.
Yeah.
And this is a case by case situation where the lot can really handle a lot, a big addition that's, carefully considered. And so that would be, my argument for that. And I've been around a while and I've seen a few of them that have been up in that neighborhood. So, that's what it is.
Okay. Brian?
Well, my only comment about that is that was done under the old guidelines. And we passed an updated guidelines within the last couple of years. So, and I think we tried to address that, how we go over that 50%, or do we not go over that 50%? So I think the new guidelines, we may have tried to tighten that up some.
Well, the 50 has always been the number. I
So,
know
so I
that.
want to go back to this. So right now we have 2,258 square footage of the main existing house, and that's the
Correct.
footprint.
Correct.
So 50% of that is 1,129 square feet. So what is being requested? What is that number?
So the additions that are proposed, the heated part of it, the coverage is 1146.
And then the covered porch.
The covered porch is 360 more. That takes to 1506, and that's where we get the 66.7 number.
So the 1146 is 51.
Correct.
Without the covered porch.
Correct.
I know in the past, we've looked at like a covered porch, of making like a pergola type situation that didn't have a covering on it, and that doesn't count as square footage, so
Got that. That's proposed too.
that's proposed as well.
That's next to it. Is if I'm reading.
Well, the last time we had that shown. So what I really want to emphasize is the fact that we really do want the covered porch. That's part of the ask here. I mean, obviously there are other ways to deal with that, but
So my final comment would be that I agree with my fellow commissioners that with such a large accessory structure addition that's going on to it as well, I think I do hesitate at that 67% for the addition of the house as well. Because we're talking about 50% of the square footage of the house now going on to the accessory, is that correct?
well, the entire accessory, by my reading of it anyway, can be 50% of the main house coverage. So what I did as a hedge for that is obviously I'm counting my addition in the back for part of that, but I did not count the screen porch in that number to come up with my coverage on the garage. I know that's a little convoluted, but that's where we kind of held back on that side. Plus, we did lessen the coverage on that garage just a little bit from the last time we were here. We took about,
So currently the
Almost 3
garage
feet
is
out of it.
774 square feet, and what will it be with the addition to it?
1696 total.
So 1,696.
So that's 49% of the house with the addition.
What is it without the addition?
What
When you
is,
say the house with the addition, walk us through that calculation.
okay, that is the 2258 plus the 1146.
Plus the 360.
No, it does not, I didn't include the 360 in my
Okay.
garage
Okay.
calculation.
Okay, got it.
Even though technically,
I
if
got
that
you.
was granted, we could probably do that, but that's kind
So I
of,
guess
So-
the garage addition presumes there's approval of the 1146. Sorry, the garage addition presumes approval of the 1146.
it does, it does. But, you know, that's basically, the guidelines say that we basically have a right to add 50%. So that number for the garage accessory coverage, to me, can be within that number. That's what they have a right to do. Now, design-wise or how it looks or anything else, you know, different story, but.
So you're doubling the size of the garage with
More
the
than-
addition.
More than.
Coverage-wise,
Right.
yes.
That's what I mean. I mean, I have some pause on that, and I have a little pause on the 67%. I understand the lot. But it would seem to me like there could be some tweaking of your square footage somehow, some way. And I think that's what, I think that's where we get some pushback from those who are not here, who are commissioners. So, I mean, that's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, I'd say if we're talking about a 1,600 square foot accessory building on the site,
Yep.
that we should stay closer to the 50% for the main structure.
That's a good point. And the good thing is you've tucked all of this behind the house. So
Right.
the view from Fourth Avenue is minimal at best. So
Right.
I mean, I like that.
Do you feel like there would be any reason for a site visit to walk the site?
But,
And would it change?
I mean, that's always good, but
Yeah.
you still look at the numbers
Right.
in the end, and I think that's going to be the holdup.
You can have a gate in this alleyway,
A gate?
gate fence between the garage and the house.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
hadn't
probably.
really talked about that. but-
Yeah.
Right here, you're talking
Yeah.
about right here?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it has something to do with how much people can see. Because that's the only vantage point is a small window, but.
Very small.
I assume that you may have a gate or something there.
Oh, between the accessory and the,
Yeah.
oh, yeah,
Yeah, I
definitely.
think
Yeah,
it's
I thought you meant
definitely.
at the drive around the
No,
outside.
just,
No,
just where you see the addition.
yeah,
And I will just say this, like, kudos for just laying it out there, because a lot of people would have come in with no modifications to the accessory structure. It wouldn't have felt like as big an ask because it just wouldn't have, and then gotten it all approved and then come back for the additional piece on the accessory structure. And so,
that's a really good idea.
I mean, I just think that like, I have to, I mean, I think it's reading very big
He's
to
thought
us.
of that before.
It's
so
reading
much, Josh.
very big because of this, but I'm just saying I do appreciate the candor for it, so.
And my last comment, I have to just echo what Tyler said about the design. It's kind of unconventional to think about doing the shotguns to the back, but it can't be seen from the front. And, you know, I wouldn't be.
I agree.
I think, I mean, not that this has anything to do with what we're doing, but experientially, I think the way you got it laid out would be really beautiful. So, I don't have a problem with that, and I'm don't know what advice I can give you for reductions on the house in terms of culling back, whether you want to cull back enough conditioned space to get your screen porch, or 80% of that screen porch, or if it's, you know, the screen porch goes away. I don't know. but,
Was it the screen porch roof was also addressing some issues with the roof, or was that
It was.
not as?
I've got, it's kind of a fine detail, but I've got kind of a situation with the roof behind where I'm catching a few roofs, and that roof coming in kind of cleans up that issue, because on the back, I can do a different roof pitch. And on old houses, you never know when someone's gonna be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 inches off a foot. So that screen porch does help there, but
yeah.
Okay, anything else? Thank you.
thanks.
Thank you all.
Okay, let's go on. Discussion of addition, accessory and roof alteration at 1002 Fair Street. Jeff Fleeshauer? Fleshauer.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Welcome. Go ahead and just give us an overview of what you're trying to do.
Well, just a wee bit of background. This is a family that has 2 of the 3 children are handicapped with a genetic disease. So what we're doing is
Hey,
Trying to
hit
create-
the button on your, I don't know if your,
it is on.
is it on? Okay.
Yes, sir. So we're creating a cottage type application for them to perhaps have a little better standard of living for while we have them here. So this is why we've submitted this. This is an old garage from years gone by that if you look at the pictures, I don't know if you had a chance to look
Yes,
at the
we've got 'em.
photos, but
We've got the current pictures
it's terrible.
with the wonderful vines all growing up.
Yes, sir. It definitely is in need of some attention. So, I've given you a preliminary set of drawings that, really, we're keeping the garage, 2-car garage as was built, and, just creating a little cottage area behind that, which right now is an old wood shop from days gone by.
Okay.
The only thing we're adding is 200 square feet of overhang to address the application out into the yard. We're going to put a pool in for them and dress that up so they can wheel out and wheel in. They're both confined to wheelchairs.
Okay. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The proposal includes in addition to the circa 1950s 2-car concrete block garage. The measurement of the historic garage is 532 square feet, and the proposed addition is 652 square feet without the little patio cover overhang. And the guidelines state that addition should be properly placed at the rear of the dwelling and be distinguishable from the original in the clear inset and differing materials. The location of the addition is at the rear of the structure, but it does not use an inset, which does not meet the guidelines for the inset, but it does meet the guidelines for placement. The guidelines also recommend that one should size the accessory structure building footprint so that the overall building footprints of all portions of the existing principal buildings, accessory structures, and proposed additions on the lot do not exceed 35% of the lot. The lot coverage and building coverage percentage has not been provided to staff within this application. Thank you.
That it? Okay. Go ahead. Comments?
So the shell of this building's existing?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, it's an old garage
So the-
and shop structure.
The comment about inset, it's all existing footprint, right?
Yes, it's an existing footprint. The only thing we're adding is 200 square feet of
That covered
overhang.
patio?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Just making sure I'm clear on what we're looking at.
So the concrete patio is what's being added.
No, sir, the concrete patio is existing as well.
There's a
The only
covered
thing we're
patio
adding is the
plastic.
patio cover So I would be putting a 20 by 10 with a cover going towards the garden side of the old garage.
And that's where all the additional square footage is.
Yes, sir, that's
Okay.
it, just that 200 square feet.
I don't have an issue with anything I'm seeing necessarily. I'm gonna pull up the, I guess, Google Earth view just to see, because I'm not sure how it's arranged on the lot. But
So if I saw the photographs correctly, it's like a cinder block building,
Yes, sir.
and you're just repurposing the cinder block building for
Yes,
this,
sir. Yes,
with
sir.
a patio cover on the back.
Right.
You don't have any problem if you were to come in, say, 6 inches on each side for the inset? Is that
For
an
the
issue?
patio cover, no, sir, I wouldn't have a problem with that.
No,
at all.
I mean on the living area, living space.
Existing.
it's all
What?
existing.
It's existing.
This is an existing,
Oh, the whole thing is, it's.
Yes, sir.
I thought you were I'm sorry, I
No,
thought you
sir.
were adding that piece on, okay, I'm with you.
They're just adding that.
Gotcha, okay.
Yeah, if you look at the first photograph, it shows the full length of it.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I thought it was right.
Well, I saw all that, but okay, sorry,
no problem.
I'm slow.
And we're gonna have it all structurally engineered to where I'll get some trusses and we'll rework the whole roof line.
Okay, you got it? I don't have anything.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, discussion of alterations, window replacement and mortar repair at 306 Public Square. Sharon Davis applicant. This is quite a project.
It is. Well, I'm not Sharon Davis. I'm Jason
I
McConnell, the
gathered
building
that.
owner. So I purchased this building about 9 years ago.
And
it's-
you are, if you'll identify yourself.
I'm Jason McConnell.
Okay, Jason.
I have several commercial properties in Franklin and Red Pony and
Gotcha.
Cork and Cal
Right,
55
right.
South. So I bought this building about 9 years ago, and it was a law firm. And so with that tenant in particular, the building was in pretty bad shape when I bought it 9 years ago, and it hadn't improved any over those 9 years. So they just moved out of the property, and so we are attempting to restore it back to 1901 structure. It was a bank, and we came before the board several years ago. I don't remember how many, about the windows. It's an unusual situation. I think it's there's a shoulder width alley when you're looking at the front of the building to the left, and so there are about 12-foot tall double hung windows, two stories worth. And the first story gets zero sunlight, and you're looking at the side of a brick building. So we came before to see about getting those replaced with potentially a non-wood window, which was approved, but we couldn't get anyone to do the work. And so nothing was ever done about that, and they just continued to deteriorate. So now that it's empty, we have started to demo the interior and engage an architect and a structural engineer to go through all that process. But in the meantime, we're trying to restore the exterior while we're doing all the other stuff. And with those particular windows, if you look at the historic, there are a couple of random things there that I kind of would ask for some guidance on. Really, the intention is to take the existing windows and just manufacture via a CNC machine the wooden pieces as needed to restore what we have there. But on the first floor, all of those windows, they're pretty much
On the side.
on the side in the alley. They're pretty much gone. So we're going to face the same issue with the material on the first floor. Second floor is a different story because they do get sunlight. They're visible from the street where the other lower level are not. So windows are the big concern all the way around. They're all functioning, double hung windows. Even the arched window in the front they're all painted shut, of course, but we want to get those back in working order. But the windows and then the mortar itself is mud mortar on the two sides in the rear. The front is a different mortar that's a red mortar to match the brick, and it's pretty much, it's there, but in some areas it's non-existent. So we're gonna, in talking to the architect and the structural engineer, tuck point and repair all the way around the building. And if you're looking at the front door, you can see to the right of that is a window with a transom, and then to the left is a door with steps, and it's currently has no HVAC, which all the window units will be going away. Transoms will be returning to transoms. But the one question is that left door, do we make that a full height door like on the far right with the arch, or do we restore that to the original window or leave it as is? I don't really know what the best solution there is. And the other thing, if you can look at the top windows, you see there's no, I don't know the correct terminology, the grid is what I call it, but on the upper left and upper right, it's just panes of glass. So there is a little bit of the wavy glass, a few panels, but most of it's been replaced over the years with just regular glass. So trying to figure out what to do with all of those and be fiscally responsible at the same time is really where I am. So,
And my name's Sharon Davis. I work for Jason and came before the committee the last time with the windows. And so this has been the first opportunity that we've been able to really go through and inspect each window, because before there were so many issues that required our attention because of leaks and things rotting out, but it was full of tenants. So it was really hard to get in and really investigate. Brent, our contractor here, we were able to go through and identify that several of the windows, as you'll see indicated in the presentation, just need some love, just need some repair and paint. We thought we were going to need more window replacement than we actually do. So I anticipated, and I think so did Jason, that we all would be pleased, our group and yours, about there's not much need for replacement with the exception of that alley on the first level, and we've shown some pictures there. We're really at a loss with that, not only for the manufacturing side of it, but it's just we're going to have issue after issue with the amount of water that it gets and no sunlight. So that's really that we can see the one exception we're asking for in that particular area.
Okay. Let's turn it to the window expert first.
Okay.
For
great
his
building.
comments, we can all chime in, but I'll let him start it off.
I'd say great building. You know, it was the National Bank of Franklin building, built about 1901 for about $5,500. It just really shows you what time and inflation does. I think they paid $250 to the architect. For just to give you a little, just the importance of things like the marble floors, they paid $176 for those marble floors installed.
it's going to cost me a lot more to
Yeah.
correct what's missing in there, I
right.
can promise.
That's one section today.
And it had electricity in 1901, which is got to be one of the first. So I applaud you what you're doing on the windows, saving them. I would say on the two at the top where you had the window unit there, and then the full plate glass that's in the one that I'm looking at on the left. We have some old photographs. They show those were double hung
That's right.
windows.
Yes.
I'd say go back with wood double hung windows for those. I think that's a great thing to do. I think to restore as much of the original exterior as possible. I think that's what you're proposing to do. I would be for removing those concrete steps, and rather than putting a door in that spot, that transom light to the left of the main door, go back with the
window.
glass like they have on the right. I think that would be a great thing to do. I will say something on the side of the building. I have often looked in that little spot and felt sorry for the brick mason that had to lay the addition next to it.
Yeah.
And you know the bank had to just shake their head when that was going on.
Yes.
But I know you're not getting enough air in that to dry out that. And I'm going to say something I would hardly ever say
This is
on the
this is
side
significant
for
coming up.
windows is that I would, since you're talking about extruded aluminum, what about aluminum clad with wood on the inside?
I think any option other than wood is going to be beneficial for us. I
if
just
you could
think
do-
it needs protection of some sort, and that I wouldn't have an issue with that.
Yeah, aluminum clad, listen to it more. But I'd hardly ever recommend for a historic structure, but given that, you're right, it's not going to dry out. You're going to have trouble in that alley. I know we didn't talk about the other locations on the back, but it sounded to me about what's being proposed. You know, you're going to replace what's there where the window units are and make it match the others. I think that's a great plan. I'm glad that's what you want to do.
What about the frosted glass? You don't have any problem with that, do you?
For the
Side.
alley area?
Yeah, side.
None at all. You
Yeah.
have nothing to look at but a brick wall.
Yeah,
I think, and to get that light, to get light into the building.
exactly right.
Those coffered ceilings on the inside are original.
They're unbelievable.
The wainscoting, I mean, I hope you keep.
Oh,
I want it to look like 1901 as much as possible. So that's the goal.
I think you'd be very pleased. They had even covered up parts of it that we've exposed to bring it all. Yeah.
Oh, I've looked in the windows since
Yeah.
I've been
It had
Yeah.
it had 9-foot drop ceilings on the entire length of the building. So now that you can see, it's the original paint.
It's great.
It's everything is there. So
It is, and there, and the Williams County Historical Society does have some photographs of the interior.
I haven't seen
Oh.
those.
Okay.
So, you know, we could get those to you. But that would be my comment, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Josh?
I've been for a meeting or two in that building, and so it's super exciting to see what's going to happen. Windows expert aside, I would say that mortar on the front in particular, like we just went through this with another building downtown, a very high profile building, like bring those samples in.
We will,
We will.
100%. Yeah, I mean, I know you have to see it, and we're, of course, happy to do that. Our intention is to make it look exactly like that. And I don't know if there's anything you need to add about that, but we already fully anticipate bringing everything we just wondered, would that be staff approval? Would that be something we need to get on the schedule? All these things, we just want to be efficient with time because this is a big project. So whatever you tell us, we'll.
My gut would be that would probably not be staff approved.
That's correct. That it needs
Just
to come
given
back
our
to
prior
the
Staff can
Could
confirm.
come back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Y'all don't want to
Staff
step up
what?
for that one?
What'd you say?
So staff can confirm that.
Yeah, you don't want to
It would
step
be a
up for that
commission
one.
level
So I have a
approval.
question of you then. Is that something, I remember when we were talking, that might be like an on-site produce? So how do we do that?
Me?
Yeah, like the mortar.
It would be on-site adjusted. The structural engineer was saying he wouldn't mind being present to make sure that we're mixing mortar and sand at the appropriate ratio.
Okay.
But as far as the color goes, it's just sourcing it. We're pretty sure it's just red mortar.
Okay.
We just need to do
Are
a
you-
side-by-side
Excuse me.
comparison.
Are you going to repaint, the front of that's been painted, right?
No, it's just red brick.
Oh, it is red brick? Okay, because I was
We
looking
don't
at the
plan on
back and it,
painting. Yeah.
It's
the different-
different brick on the two sides and rear.
isn't that interesting? Okay.
And I mean,
Pretty
we've
on
done
the
that
front.
where obviously you can't bring the brick in to
Right.
us, so we've gone and looked at it on
Okay.
site. So it just, there can be a mortar sample there that we can look at.
And that still would be like on the schedule for the zoning commission? I just don't, I'm sure y'all can explain how that works.
Yeah, I know we've done that. before.
Yeah, it'd be one
advance.
large
Red brick,
application.
Got
So
it.
if you wanted to include some comparison photos, if you were able to show, like have a little brick sample with all
Okay.
the mortar and then show it next to
Got
the
it.
original brick, that'd be.
Okay.
That'd be sufficient for an application.
And the only thing I was going to say, and I think you all are, what you said, you're planning on doing this, but paying special attention to what was double hung and what
Yes.
wasn't, like that the arch top was 2 windows in the very center, and now it's like one with a funny little mutton bar. But it was originally 2 double hungs, according to the picture. So just those little
Oh,
things.
okay. I thought you were talking about the center window. I was confused. Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, that one right there.
I have a question about that though. So that window in particular, as it is now, functions well and does not need repair.
Which one?
The arched one in the center that he's talking about above that pediment style. So we don't intend to touch that for now. If
You
there,
don't have to.
okay.
No, you can't.
I don't know. That's a weight. I mean, it's a weighted. It's an old. I don't know.
Yeah.
It may not be original, but it's very old.
Yeah, I can. The proportion of it in comparison with some of the other ones in that original photo, you can tell it used
Yeah.
to be two separate
Yeah,
windows.
you're right.
And then the plate glass ones, if those become double hungs, I think you've got the front pretty well covered and back to original.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, the plate glass on the left actually is functioning well, but because we'll be replacing the other one, we want to replace both of them.
Okay, anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thanks a lot.
much. This is exciting.
Yeah.
9 years, we've been waiting
Yeah.
for 9
Yeah.
years.
We want to jump to him. Bernie, do you need to leave still? Are you going to need to leave? We're going to put you up if that's. This applicant has got a family situation and needs to leave, so. This is this will be items 10, 11, and 12.
Thank you.
And 13.
12, 13, 14.
Excuse me, 12, 13, 14, 15.
Thank you,
Joey, I'm
Chairman.
going to let you start off with this
Yeah,
one.
staff would just like to give a few remarks as kind of a overview of kind of where we are with this project. As a reminder, the development plan or the Magnolia Hall PUD has already been through the Planning Commission and approved by Board of Mayor and Aldermen. So the lot widths, the layout, site layout has been approved. And also this does fall under the old guidelines. So there is that caveat about the lot coverage. And so the 35% lot coverage will not be considered because of the planned district zoning. So that kind of gets back to where we are with this currently and reviewing the specific lot plans or the houses on the specific lots. So there's kind of just a few general bullet points that we've kind of established with the last voting meeting. One is overall height of the homes when proposed to the historic Magnolia Hall at the center of the property, as well as just ornamentation for each house and stylistically not wanting to really compete with the Magnolia Hall mansion, as well as any kind of form that can be help with those kind of two areas of comment. So those are kind of the bullet points for the discussion today. So I think what might be useful for the applicant's time and our time, because we do have a large agenda, is to kind of cover those bullet points as a whole, and then we can go over the specific lots after that with any specific comments about each specific house.
Okay, so we're going to look at it from a macro standpoint and then a micro standpoint. So let's take the macro part first. Who wants to start? Oh, wait a minute. I'll let Bernie start. And
Hey,
Mike.
I'm going to
and
try to
Matt.
shut up as much as possible. I know that's a challenge. Oh, well, my conviction is that we've been through the process for about 6 months. And that process has been that trying to listen and go, you know, and I will say, we started at a part in the process where none of us are kind of novices about what we were presenting. So we all have a lot of experience and are trying to create the exact, so we all have the same quote unquote agenda relative to creating things that are going to be generationally relevant. So from that point, we've been listening for the last 6 months of going, okay, we're gonna move towards the board, the commission of these things. And so I think we're at that point where, whether it's transom windows or height or whatever, where we have this stuff in these first 4 homes where they need to be. And we've been incorporating contextually all of those things that are important, if I can say, in all the 10. So that we're not going through reinventing the wheel every time we go to this next thing and y'all are having to say the same comments. So my voice is purely, I feel like we're where we need to be. I love where we are, and and we're basically trying to keep the spirit of the houses we had. And in deference to Mary, getting rid of conal shapes We had 4, now we have 1. Redid 3 of the houses, actually 4 of the houses completely. And so I hope that you'll take that in consideration as we're moving forward through this thing. Now I'll shut up. Thank you.
And I'll just add real quick, Jim. So some of the comments we heard at the Maine Historic Zoning Commission meeting was remove the transoms in the key area, other than key areas. I think that was something Brian, you mentioned. And maybe do taller windows, reduce the fireplaces to minimum height, keep the dormers at least 1 foot back so they're not wall dormers. Be consistent on our height, what we've had in our schedules. Josh, you mentioned that, and we'll clean that up definitely for the final submittal. And then massing, we've tried to break the mass of these houses up. As you know, Magnolia is a pretty large box, a beautiful box, but it's a box that doesn't have a lot of ins and outs. So the ins and outs on our houses are going to create that feeling of a lesser scale than the main house. So like Bernie said, that we've done our best to try to incorporate some of your great comments and look forward to hearing more your thoughts so we can get to a final resolve.
Okay. Who wants to comment first? Let's look at it from the 4 houses on their own, rather than individually.
I do want to start with a question. So when I'm looking at where it shows in relation to the homes that are going to be built in relation to Magnolia Hall, and I'm seeing the height, of each one of those structures, and then I see an elevation, and that elevation will say like +5 feet, +4, +3, +2. Does that mean that the elevation of where that house is going to sit is that much higher than the elevation of Magnolia Hall?
Yes. Yes.
Correct. That's right.
So if
Now, that's not Magnolia Hall, that is
I
without the turret. I mean, without the cupola on Magnolia Hall.
Yeah, well, see that, so we can beg to differ where the height is, but I think the board, I think from my sense of the board's definition is at the roof line, not the cupola.
Well,
So I don't want to get into that, but I'm
No.
just saying that, so that's what that means is that really, if you were to look at that house at 32 feet at its height from grade, it will actually be 37.8 in relationship to Magnolia Hall.
the ridge of the roof, which is a 1.5-story house, not a full 2-story, so you don't have a full 2-story plane. These ridges are set back from that front edge of that. So it isn't going to feel the same as the full box 2-story, 30-something feet of whatever Magnolia Hall
I think
is.
it's 32 something.
Yeah. So
It's
I think
32.
it's a little bit apples and oranges relative to height and scale, because we're basically saying the ridge of that roof, of that 1.5-story roof, is that tall, not where the front of that Tyler would tell us. The front, where the front height
The eave.
is.
The eve of what? What are we talking about?
Well, we're looking at a 1.5-story house, so we're looking at the scale of that height is pushed back about 30 or 40 feet from that front edge versus a full 2-story thing, which from the start of this thing, I basically said, I'm going to not have any 2 stories. I'm going to do 1.5 to try to make sure that the scale wasn't an issue. And so, because I don't want a big 2-story exposures up around the house either, even though have less than 2 acres under roof on a 12-acre site.
So I only have one other comment to make, and then I'll let the other
Yeah.
fellow commissioners chime in. But, so, it's been talked about in the past, the turrets and the porch post and all this. I think the designs here, they're going to blend in just wonderfully. I mean, I can't say I have anything about that. I would say that the height and the scale, I think we still need to do something on the height and the scale. I don't know how much, but I think it's going to overwhelm Magnolia Hall in the way, from my point of view, and even what I'm seeing from the 3D view.
Well, it's not going to,
Wait a minute. Josh, go ahead.
Yeah, so I just want clarity on this. So, for example, number 1835, it shows the height is 32 feet 8 inches, and the mansion is 32 feet. But the height in context, based on elevation, is really, of 1835, is really sitting at 37.8 as compared to Magnolia Hall because of the grade. Is that correct?
Yes, but it's over 300 feet
I'm not
away.
arguing with you about it. I'm just asking. I just
I got
want to
you.
make sure
No,
I'm
no.
reading your
Correct.
page
So
correctly.
I used as a baseline the grade basically at the front porch of Magnolia Hall. I said, okay, that's going to be 0.
Right.
So then lot 2, I always go by the lots, but I should start switching over mentally to what 1835 is, because it's yeah, and it is over and I wanted to make sure that other site plan was in there so you can kind of get a sense of the scale. And I guess our feeling is that in the planning process, when this was approved, I think a great victory was won for the mansion. Because typically in these developments, you see a mansion crowded around rather closely by the new structures. And this really has just a huge buffer zone, which I think helps really ameliorate that grade change. But yeah, but you're seeing that properly, yeah.
So the same on the opposite end, where it's street number 1853, it's 33 feet tall, but you've got half a foot grade drop from the mansion. So it gets you at
Yes.
32.5.
Yes, so you
32.5. Okay, that was just my question. Thank you.
Okay, there are two things. One, you had a perspective view, which was not in this packet today, but we got last week, from Boyd Mill, looking back from Boyd Mill back toward Magnolia Hall. Yes. In that shot right there and others that followed, that picture dominates Magnolia Hall, in my opinion. Now, the other picture was what you showed today, the perspective from, I'll call it from Glass Lane, after that hedgerow's cleared out. And we talked about these four houses. I'm the same as what Brian has said and Josh has said. They're looking from Glass Lane, they show much bigger than what Magnolia Hall looks like. I mean,
You're not going to see them from Glass Lane because the hedgerow's not coming out.
Okay.
I mean, so
Well, today it's not coming out, but it may not. But looking at it from this perspective, these houses are bigger than or equal to Magnolia Hall. But the main thing from Boyd Mill, it dominates Magnolia Hall.
it's not going to be seen. The only thing that's going to be seen from
Well,
Boyd
then
Mill
maybe your
is Magnolia
representation was
Hall.
wrong in the meeting. Maybe that representation was wrong. But
I mean,
from-
so for us to we'd have to basically build Fair Street cottages on lots, on these houses.
Bernie, all I'm telling you is, from that perspective that we saw last week at Historic Zoning, it dominated Magnolia Hall, in my opinion.
Well, these are story and a half houses, normal. What are we going to do? I mean, we
don't
were going to
know.
have
I'm not-
15 houses. We only got 10.
I'm not building them. So,
Could I make a comment?
Yeah.
On that? I think just because of the distance of the mansion relative to the distance that the view is to the individual houses, even if the heights came down several more feet.
Because it's in the foreground?
Because of the foreground background, I think that
I'm just telling you, from
That
that
comes into play.
perspective is where I was surprised. I wasn't expecting that. I mean, we've walked it multiple times over there. So I know you've got a road going in right now. So,
Well,
and is that I'm taking it that's the road, drawn
that's the-
correctly or from that perspective.
that's the road without any trees that are already there. So,
and we purposely left the trees out just so you could,
Sorry, I mean.
bracket that issue out. In reality, it's going to be all trees, and you won't be able to see the houses in context to the mansion like that.
Okay. Well,
But yeah.
you got any thoughts on this?
Well, I apologize for walking in late. We were doing a Juneteenth event downtown, putting up a marker to A&C Williams. But it has been the precedent of this board that the historic property is the tallest. And I do not believe counting the cupola as that significant of a mass and then coming up is appropriate. I also, and I've made comments before, most of the house designs to me are calming down because the historic property is to be the star. I'm not a fan of the round turret on the first house. I don't think architecturally it fits in. So I would say that I'm going to continue to advocate for a quieter looking design than turrets. And
We got rid of 3 of the 4.
I know.
We got rid of
understand.
3 of the 4. And so
And I appreciate that.
we have,
You've done, there's no
we've gotten rid of
question.
transoms, we've gotten rid of 5 feet of height out of these things. They're all 1.5 stories. We're going off the grades that we have out there.
And so where did they hit the roof line, the main mass of Magnolia Hall?
Say that again?
What is the height, is that red line that goes across?
Yeah.
So they have come,
5 feet.
And
Yes.
there is grade included in
Got
there.
you.
So the houses, if they were all on level grade,
Or be lower.
would be lower.
the lower,
correct?
okay. Well, then that seems,
We've done everything that I know that we can do, and most of us have been doing this a really long time. And obviously, Mike isn't going to submit something that's not right historically. So I don't know what else we can do to try to comply with
the guidelines.
with the guidelines, and more than the guidelines, I think our standard is higher than the guidelines. My standard's never been the guidelines. My standard's been, what can we do that's the very best thing we can possibly do? And so that's what we're trying to do, is to create that on this site with only 10 houses on a 12-acre site. And so that are really going to be not going to be the dominant thing in this thing, because the house is sitting on 7 acres.
Okay, anybody else got anything on them? Do you want to go to the individual houses, folks?
Mr. Chair.
I don't need to. Y'all have any?
Yeah, just
Other
before we
comments?
start, just for some more guidance for the applicant, let me go back to that other perspective. Would it be beneficial to the commissioners to have this rendering, but with the trees there that are existing? Or would you prefer it as is?
I don't think we consider
Landscape.
as a remedy.
No, the trees are already there.
But we still aren't permitted to consider them. Even, for example, in that rendering, the bushes, they're very prominent. We're not supposed to be looking at those.
Okay.
And as far as cottage, you mentioned Fair Street cottages. So the footprint on is it 102?
Lot 2.
Lot 2, so the footprint is 6,417 square feet. So the total square footage is what?
Of what?
Of Lot 2, the house that's going to be on Lot 2.
No, I think that's the total square footage. I
I
don't
think that's
the
total.
footprint.
That is the
Oh, you
total.
do?
Yeah, that's not the
It
footprint.
says, actually, on the blueprint, it says building footprint, 6,417 square feet, and then it gives you the breakdown of conditioned and unconditioned space. Conditioned, 5,729, unconditioned, 3,000.
That's basement, first floor, second floor.
So that's not a cottage house. That's
No,
my only point.
No, I'm saying a cottage house with not, when I say a cottage house, I mean it's a 1-story house. That's
And what are your ceiling heights?
11 on the first floor and 10 on the second.
Okay. So you do have some room to make some adjustments.
I could make the second floor a 9-foot ceiling, but we're trying to create something that looks historically relevant, not historically correct because we're creating something new. We're trying to create something historically relevant, but that lives in a modern way on the inside.
Some of the wall heights on the second floor as low as 7.
Well, that
And
was
they vault up.
just only comment. I mean, I don't need to see all the different designs, do you?
I don't. I mean, I've said what I'm going to say, so.
Yeah.
Could I ask you a quick question? So, lot 2, if you look at that and you took away the one gabled in, the one detail gable, it's basically a 1-story with a dormer. I mean, it would live like a story and a half, but it's the scale and mass of a 1-story. So, when you're perceiving this, other than the turret, when you perceive this, you perceive it as a single story with a front, gabled in. Is there any consideration from a height perspective, the fact, I think Bernie said it earlier, that this roof is sloping way back and three-dimensionally, as we look at this, it's going to scale much smaller. Again, you're looking at Magnolia Hall. It's a large size structure. So it reads full 2-story with the roof. Is there any consideration to that what you're perceiving it could almost be a 3-story building, Magnolia Hall, and it would still look diminished because you're 300 feet down the lane. So I don't know how to show
Well,
that.
I mean, I don't
perception.
know how to do this either, Mike, other than I know what I saw
Right.
in that perspective. And I was
What if we stuck Magnolia Hall
surprised.
in between these things so that they were up next against it so you could see the scale?
I don't
think that's going to help your case.
I don't think it is.
I think it is because of the massing.
Well, I think try it.
So if you got a 2-story box that's 2 feet tall at every corner, and you got a box that's 15 feet across the front or whatever it is and goes way back, it's not going to feel the same. It just doesn't feel the same.
Something I know in that software you all use that you could certainly just take a shot with Magnolia Hall literally sitting on top of the other building and ghost it back, and you could see the difference in mass that way. And then maybe where you head for each individual plane eventually is just plop that on the 3D model, ghost it in, and then you'd have a pretty rendering for your marketing materials. But I have a similar reaction to everybody else that they still are pretty big. I mean, just looking at the silhouette, it's like they're pretty big houses. But I also understand that, we can't put dinky little houses in here because that would even probably cheapen the mansion and the neighborhood. I have some respect for that. 11-foot ceilings and 10 upstairs is luxurious, to say the least, which I know you're trying to build a luxury home.
Well, that's what the Owens house is on Glass Lane, right at the Glass Lane gate. So we're basically duplicating the Owens house, which is closer to the mansion than any of these first 3 houses. We're basically taking that house and setting it over.
When I look at like 1841 on the screen, it's got the knee wall condition and the eaves a little higher there. If there's a way to cheat that down a little bit, those little moves, getting eaves down, trying to touch the ground in a little more gradual way, might help. I think 1839 is kind of a similar, it looks like a real tall eave at the corner. If there's ways to cheat that down, that's great. Even if it's a little fin wall or something, the roof carries down. Just things that cheat the eye into thinking this thing's closer to the ground and accentuates the idea that it does recede away from your eye. And then, the rendering I think is a pretty one, the perspective, but it is exaggerated a little bit because the foreshortening, and maybe you need to go to Magnolia and put that in the right side of the rendering and look down the other direction and see how big this thing is and how small those get. Because I know that looking at this, they are, if you took all the roof out and you just trace the eaves, they'd look a lot smaller. But we do have a roof plane to consider. And the easiest way to see that is the perspective. So maybe some other views, looking the other direction with Magnolia Hall being the closest thing would kind of exaggerate it in the other way and maybe balance things out for us.
And I believe that we do have a view in there with that in the package. Just one point about the ceiling heights, just to make sure you understand. If it's a 10-foot ceiling, it slopes down to a shorter wall, whether it be 7 or 8 or 9. So we're not having necessarily tall walls on the second floor. In the last round of changes, one thing that I did was to remove a room from the front part, and in an attempt to and put more of the area towards the rear of the house to lessen the need for height at the front portion of the house. They are large houses considering the overall square footage, but we are trying to present them as cottages, and one where we're doing that is to move more of the second floor function towards the rear, and then also just the shape of the footprint. It presents, it's much more deeper, much more deep than it is wide. In order for the front to read more like a cottage and not like a very large house.
Mary, the inspiration of that Lot 2 house was Ernie's house.
Yeah.
And the difference in that conal shape of what Ernie and those guys have is that they're by conal shape, the curved porch doesn't have a cone on it.
Right.
The porch goes back, the porch goes back to the roof. You know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
So,
When I look at that, that's where my eye goes. And that, I have no problem with the curved porch. I just think the scale of a turret in that situation is odd, and it makes your eye run to it. And to use your words, Ernie,
yeah.
I think Magnolia Hall is the queen of the site.
Well, me too.
And I think that calls for these houses, which I think you have done on a lot of the front elevations, to be more calm.
I think that's a fair comment. And I think Lord knows, by this time, we realize we really want the same thing.
Absolutely.
We have from the first day we set foot on the property. And
Well,
we
I'm talking
talked
about with everything. We share the same value set.
I know you do.
And so especially, gee whiz. He's set, and he's,
And, the colors of brick are gonna matter, the paint's gonna matter.
All of that.
It's all gonna matter.
every little thing matters. So, which is good. This is good. This isn't a bad thing. It's a good thing. So, as I've told people for 20 years, it ought to be hard as crap to get something done in the historic district.
It is. Bingo.
No, it ought to be. It ought to be because we care so much.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. It's
Thank
just, I feel like the semi that's run into the wall.
Okay, anybody else got anything?
Thank you, guys.
We're done.
Thank you. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you. Safe journey.
And thank you for letting me do
Safe
this.
journey. Yeah, mother died his mother died last week. He's going to funeral. Yeah. Okay, let's see, where are we?
Item 5.
Yeah. We'll get to the right page here. Yeah. All right, discussion of addition rear at 236 Public Square. Robin Hood applicant, not the other Robin Hood.
We've got another Robin.
Another Robin Hood.
Robin always told me that meant his parents had a great sense of humor. So his did too.
Okay.
Hello, I'm Robin Hood with Crossroads Architecture, and I'm here on behalf of Evelyn Berry Swain and her family. We have a two-story existing structure at 236 Public Square, built in the late 1800s. We are wanting to do a second floor addition and then some interior alterations for the project. Handicap accessibility for both floors. Building will become fully sprinkled, going to an open plan for the interior. We are looking at changing the use of the building from office to potentially mercantile, one tenant for both floors. Upgrading mechanical, electrical, and the addition is a second floor addition only. It's about 692 square feet. We do have, Mrs. Swain there's actually two pieces of property here that we'll have to consolidate, but we have what's in blue on the site plan is the building footprint, and that's on one parcel. And then we have 4 parking spaces in the rear, in the alley area that are existing, 4 existing parking spaces. So we'll consolidate that for you guys. But the second floor addition is in gray, kind of the grayed out area. So we'll be able to retain our 4 parking places. Parking in downtown Franklin is a premium. So that's the synopsis of the project.
We have a little.
I see that.
Strawberry.
Just scoot back, Jim.
I'm glad
I thought
that.
it was Pepto-Bismol. I'm glad.
Yes, I'm glad it's not either. Excuse us. Why don't we take about a 5-minute recess here?
Yeah.
Okay.
If we could just a minute.
Okay.
Recess. Y'all ready? Let's, is Brian out there?
He is. He's right behind him.
He's behind you.
Tyler, we put that up today on the building that was owned by a free black man, and he ran a business there for 67 years. He got it 1 year after emancipation,
That's a big deal.
and he stopped a race run.
Hey, Emily, would you yell at Brian out there? He's talking. Needs to get on back in here so we,
To do that.
Mr. Hood needs to not be held anymore.
Good.
All right, do we need to give them a high sign? Emily, do we need to wave our hand, tell them to restart?
I think we're on, aren't we?
I think y'all are on.
Huh?
We're on.
All right. Now, sorry for that.
No worries. We're all good. Thank you.
Go ahead.
So I think after we met with Emily and Joey earlier, and I think, of course, our focus is on the addition, right?
Right.
The second story addition on the back, and the challenge for us was how do we incorporate the addition, support for that structurally, and maintain keeping the 4 existing parking places. There was discussion early on about maybe carrying the brick wall or a wall all the way down to grade. And the issue we have with that is obviously from a vehicle standpoint, it's almost impossible to get doors open and for that to work. Plus the alley is so tight, I think it would be kind of a blind alley. So currently what we're suggesting and proposing is to have a couple of columns, exposed steel columns, that would support that second floor and keep it fairly simple. One of the items that Emily and Joey discussed last time was maybe on the existing structure on the second floor, we've got 3 existing windows. We would like to take those and relocate those to the new addition. And then, of course, the brick masonry, we would do our best to match that as close as we can. But as you can see, from an elevation standpoint, it's fairly simple and straightforward. So that's kind of where we're at, and we just wanted to get y'all's suggestions and comments on that.
Okay, staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Rear additions for commercial buildings are encouraged to be at the rear and kind of not as publicly viewable as possible. That's not really possible with this building because as you can see here, it'll be within full view of the sidewalk as you walk towards the square along 3rd Avenue. And the second story only addition is not something you would see back then or really today. There's not really a comparison along Main Street today. So I think it'd be really difficult to have sort of a hanging addition be able to meet the guidelines. I think as we discussed with the applicant, if they were able to bring the wall all the way down, that's something that could be considered a bit more. But I think just having this hanging addition just really isn't anything that you would find within the commercial area, especially the downtown district that is so crucial to how the preservation program within Franklin. And the windows, I think the preferable treatment of that would be to leave the windows where they are and then leave those openings there. And then should the addition, if approved, ever go away in the future, then those windows are still there in their original spots. So it is a really unique proposal on a very unique location of the building, because if this was in the middle of the other block of Main Street, it'd be very limited in public view. But just because of where it is very visible from the street, from pedestrian traffic. And there is just wanted to kind of bring up, just for the applicant's knowledge as well, we had Shannon McCoy from our BNS department. One-time addition not to exceed 1,000 square feet may be approved without having to provide additional parking, but all existing spaces must remain. So that means they cannot take away any current parking within the rear of that building. So again, it's another kind of issue to work through, that any sort of addition cannot take away existing parking. Now, in regards to the front plans, kind of just a list of things to really kind of update with this building, including removal of these front doors, or replacement of the front doors, and the metal awning, not the awning, the metal storefront windows. They all appear to kind of been gone through a renovation at some point, probably in the 70s or probably 80s or 90s, to where all these metal non-historic storefront windows were done. So without specifics, any sort of wood composite or more traditional storefront window can be supported. So that can certainly something we can work with the applicant about. But the rear addition is really kind of a big question mark right now. So
Did we not do something with another building on the other side of Third Avenue similar to this second-story addition?
I think you're thinking of Gray's, where they had an existing.
I don't remember the building.
An existing.
But there was something.
There was a fire.
There
and
was a Red Pony.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
Red
right there.
Pony, not Gray's.
But
Red
it seemed
Pony,
like
yeah.
there was another building right there, not the fire building, but another one where we had something where they had
and
parking.
I will say
there's
there
a
are
deck.
kind of
There's a
that
deck,
Walton's-
and that was Walton's.
Yeah, Walton's
Okay.
also had that, but there was a deck.
Yeah, there's wooden decks and various other kind of wooden structures that encroach over the parking spaces.
Okay, all right, and not built out like this.
Nothing brick or masonry.
And just to make a comment from what staff has said, it is very visible. So if you're on
Yeah.
if you're driving on Third Avenue North, I mean, and you look, I mean, there it is. I mean, you're going to see this.
Yep.
It's
Yep,
not even
there it
like
is.
the Red Pony. It's at the very back of the building. And I have to say, the Red Pony, that's a pretty model, that's a really good addition they did on the back of the Red Pony. And the way they made it match the original building. I know you probably are going to have a challenge. I think that's already a blind alley pulling out.
Yeah, it's tough to get in there, but it's doable. I mean, we were there, we've been there multiple times and seen cars pulling in and out. Our concern is if we put a wall there, number one, we only have 10 inches to work with, okay? So if we were even able to get a wall there, a car backing out, it's even worse now. Not to mention physically that you couldn't even open your doors, right? It wouldn't even be a usable space. So, from that standpoint, we just see that as it just doesn't function. It wouldn't function.
And I understand that totally, but I do agree with staff. I don't see where the guidelines support I call it a floating addition, especially that's in a view shed that's easily seen.
Now, I will point out, so it is easily seen in the wintertime when the trees, when the leaves are gone, but now you can't, when you drive by, you have to physically be into the alley before you actually see
Well, if it's where
the
I think
addition.
it is, and I think I know where it is. I mean, I drove by there yesterday. It was very visible. I mean, and I'd say on the windows, just when you come back before historic zoning for the vote, if you bring the schematics of what the windows are going to look like, I mean, I think we'd want to see that.
Okay.
And the doors as well.
Okay.
Okay, Josh, you got any comments?
Nothing. I mean, we're not supposed to consider landscaping, so I'll just say that for the record. But yeah, I think it's so visible. I would have a hard time supporting that.
Tyler, you got a winter view pulled up.
Well, I'm just, wondering if there's an in-between somewhere where it could be, instead of the steel columns, if there are brick columns or something, but I still think it's a peculiar form. We equate that kind of drive under building with banks and things, but not historic banks, because you weren't driving through the historic bank. So
Right,
it's a
right.
little bit of an odd form, and from a precedent-setting perspective, there's got to be a solution downtown to people wanting or needing to add on, and it's a kind of a bigger question to me. Are we going to allow things like this, or are we not, or how's it going to work? I don't know. But it is a
Could I
peculiar
ask
form.
just a question and get get your thoughts? So if we're looking at, if I can get this thing to work right. So if we're looking at this elevation right here, and that's the elevation in question, if we were able to get some brick and pull this down a little bit further and maybe create more of maybe an opening area, and it not be a solid wall, but create an openness, like a void, not a window, but a void through there where doors could still open, but at the same time, it doesn't give that floating look that we have now. Would that be something a little closer to you guys have in favor, or would you just need to see it? I'm assuming.
Need
I
to
think
see
we
it.
would need to see
Okay.
Yeah.
renderings of that.
I think anything you can think of,
Okay,
we're open to seeing.
sure, okay.
I even thought about some pierced brick, look, but then you still got a wall.
You do, exactly, and that's,
you know,
and
it
it
didn't
being
solve
functioning, that's the whole point of trying to, we just don't have the room.
Are you at the 0 lot line?
I'm sorry?
Are you at the 0 lot line? Right? I mean, is that the lot line, or could you build?
No, the issue, if you go back to the, let's see, a 1.0, a 1.0 sheet. So if you see this little striped area right here, so that's literally, we have, it's 10 inches to spare. The parking places are 9 feet each. We have to have 5 feet here coming out of the building, so we've got 5 feet, 9, 9, 9, 9. I've got 10 inches left over, and that's where we're trying to make everything fit, so we don't lose a parking place. And anyway, so that is an extreme challenge to get structure, brick, everything within that. It's almost impossible, really. So.
Okay. Anybody got any other thoughts?
I mean, the last thing I was going to say was, we do have big, wide open buildings with cars full of them right behind us. And this is a on-grade steel parking structure with building above it, yeah, essentially. So I'm kind of conflicted with it because I'm like, yeah, it's a weird form, but it's not all that dissimilar to the parking garage sitting behind us or the other one sitting across from Puckett's, which are open walled, and they have steel and concrete and some glass and stairs, and those can be seen from lots of public right-of-ways. So I don't know. There may be like I said, if they were wrapped in brick and there was some opening somehow, we have lots of historic precedent of, livery stables here downtown that had big openings and maybe not even doors or anything on them. So I don't know what to tell you. I'm not sure anybody would be in favor of the floating second story, but it's I would feel more comfortable with that than the steel posts. It just seems like
Sure.
a lot of weight, and it's a funny form.
I understand.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say just trying to figure out a creative remedy. I mean, I'm wondering if you had the steel post, but there was some kind of, looked like steel closed shutters, something like that to create part of a wall.
Okay.
I think, and then also if you can find a situation somewhere, we want to work with downtown.
Sure.
And when you have to, how large is the addition?
692 square feet.
Feet.
Yes, ma'am.
And you can go up,
To 1,000.
but you have to keep,
You have to maintain your parking.
and even with the 600 and something, you couldn't say we've now got 3 parking spaces and meet codes. I'm asking.
That I would have to check on.
That'd be another thought.
I think our understanding was from when we talked with codes earlier that we would have to get a parking agreement with a neighboring property if, to make that work, if that's possible.
That personally would be my choice, but to reduce to 3 parking spaces and work it out if that were possible, and meet codes, and not have floating addition.
Yes, ma'am.
And
Mr. Chair, I just have one other comment. It's based on the windows. So my concern, and I understand what staff is recommending on the windows and leaving those openings. But I think I'm right on this, that as soon as that becomes an enclosed space, it's on the interior. And since the Historic Zoning Commission has no purview over the interior, in the future, those could be removed. And I would rather see them reused on the exterior of the building than to risk losing them in the future. You know, and that would be my only comment about that.
That's a good point, very good point.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else?
One other thing, Mr. Chair, just for any future submittals that might come in regarding this addition, just to really kind of emphasize to, as within the design, to emphasize the difference in what's original or historic to what is the addition, because as you can see, this rear elevation is pretty flush with the existing bump out that's back here. So any sort of inset, just to really further break what is historic versus what is new,
Yes.
that would be encouraged for the applicant.
Right.
And y'all mentioned that the last time, and I forgot to incorporate that. My
And-
apologies.
And I agree with staff wanting to pull the old windows out of a building and reuse them, but given this situation, maybe that is the best choice.
What is the best choice?
I don't think it would be best practices really to pull the windows out of the old building. I agree with staff on that, but in this situation, it may be the best choice.
Well, the unfortunate thing, at least for one of the windows, that would be it's in a rated stair, so the window could remain, but behind it, it would have
Yeah.
to be a 2-hour rating. So you would just see it from one side.
Yeah.
So
Okay, is that it? That's it, thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, our next item is discussion of alterations roof line at 324 3rd Avenue South.
I believe this is on. Does that sound right? Okay. First off, my name
Are
is...
you Mr. Nicodemus?
I am Scott Nicodemus, yes. And on June 2nd, we were issued a stop work order because of a roof that was torn off on the property. With all due respect to the DRC, Historic Commission, and to Building and Neighborhood Services and the neighborhood in general, this was a mistake and a misunderstanding on my part, and I do apologize. I did not realize that we were not allowed to replace the roof. Our client did want the roof replaced in spite of everything. We were talking shingles and different styles and colors, and the guys just went ahead and demoed the roof because it was rotten. And so I do apologize with all due respect to that. So I'm here to figure out what I need to do to make this right, and where do we go from here?
Okay. Joey?
Yes. So let me pull up the pictures that have now escaped me. Just give me 1 second. Okay, so this probably gives the best angle of kind of what's gone on. Essentially, the applicant and the building permit was permitted or approved based on the COA that had been approved by the Historic Zoning Commission last year. And then the work went beyond the scope of work that was approved, including removal of the roof structure as well as the gable forms along the chimneys. So basically the entire roof along that main form, as you can see, is now gone. Also, there was some apparent damage to, or possibly alterations to, the windows that are remaining over here on this side elevation. So essentially, now the applicant, after the stop work order, applicant has to come back in to essentially get a new COA for this, for the work that has already been done and how to essentially repair it back to a state that was the state that was approved in the original COA. So we can also pull up some more pictures as well. We would encourage the windows on this elevation to be repaired. I'm not sure about the scope of work needed for those windows or what the damage all entails or the alterations all entail. But that is something we did want to highlight, is that the remaining windows on this side should be repaired, and also to match the fenestration pattern of the approved COA.
May I say something? To my knowledge, I was very well aware that we were not allowed to alter or replace any windows. And so I don't know of any windows that were replaced or altered in any way. So that's the first I'm hearing of that right now.
And it's just kind of based on what the photos show, and this is a better view. It may just be that these windows are open, but I just did want to highlight that I just don't know what the condition of those windows are. So I wanted to just make sure we say that the historic windows need to remain and be repaired.
Okay.
That's right.
Who wants to start on this?
Guess I can go. Yes, unfortunate what happened. I think in my eyes, I'd like to just see it put back the way it was, which will be a little bit of kind of reverse engineering based on what kind of evidence is left. Looks like you all had fairly well documented the original house, but I think you get some more on-site evidence with lines on chimneys and things like that to really get the slope of the roof right. The sad reality of rebuilding houses like this is, there's probably old growth timber that it was framed with, and we probably can't use those same members anymore. So usually you're going to suffer in the ceiling height because of, the depth of members is just greater now with kind of the standard lumber that we have available to us. So, but my expectation would be when you come back for a new COA in 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 3 weeks, that we kind of see a drawing set that's kind of here's what we plan to rebuild and why we think we're rebuilding it this way. And it might have to include, how you intend to make up for some of those differences. And, lumber that used to be a 2x4 roof rafter now has to be a 2x10. Where do those inches come out of? But I would expect that the exterior looks just like it did before it was demoed.
Our plan was to rebuild it exactly back to the same height using the chimney as our guide. The owner did ask that we save the lumber that was torn out because he'd like to repurpose it in the house. So I am proposing that we could he'd like to vault the interior ceilings in the living room. We can use the lumber that was torn out and put it to work actually as collar ties. And he'd like to have those exposed in the vaulted living room ceiling as part of the old characteristic of the home.
And I guess all that is, Mr. Tosh's department. Somebody's going to come inspect framing, and there are some rules that go along with that.
Right.
So, if you've got a structural engineer that'll tell you guys how to put all that together and the way it needs to be done, then I think that goes a long way too with building and neighborhood services. So,
Well, I observed from a neighbor that was concerned backyard that the old materials appeared to be in 3 dumpsters.
Right, but the roof support, that is correct. The old material, the plywood, is in 3 dumpsters. But the material, the roof support system that was actually, the stuff that was torn off, and I have an engineer that wrote this in a letter for us, was old plywood, things like that. The rafters, I guess the roof support system is what we kept laid aside outside of the dumpsters, not to throw away. That's what he'd asked to be repurposed. In fact, we have a little storage unit, a mobile mini, that we're keeping a lot of the old wood floors and things like that to repurpose in the house.
So you mentioned the roof was rotten.
What-
So when you say rotten, you're talking about the plywood, not the actual trusses.
The trusses too were rotted. As
So
far
you're
as
going to use the rotted wood back for your collar ties?
you can cut it in sections to use. You can cut off the bad, like there's termite damage to some ends and some, so we could cut off the middle sections and possibly use them as collar ties and put them back to work. That was an idea that came up.
And I know the word unfortunate's been, but this is shocking. I mean, we see actually basically a house that's been demolished. And I did have a neighbor send me a picture too of some of the roof trusses part that's laid to the side, and I was pleasantly surprised. Those are huge timbers. I mean, they are not your common 2x4, even sawmilled back in the day. There was a true 2x4. It's a very large material, and I just think it's very unprecedented for anyone just to tear the entire roof off. But neither here nor there. I do agree with my fellow commissioner that I know that the applicant did request that the roof line, the pitch be changed and the height made greater, and the board unanimously voted not to do that.
That's right.
And so, I mean, to me, this was a great opportunity for somebody to actually get what they wanted from this as far as the height. So I would agree that it has to be put back exactly as it was before on the pitches. I just agree with that.
Well, the precedent that we have with historic zoning in Franklin, and Randall may be the one that remembers this with me, I was on Boyd Mill. This approach was taken to a house, and it had to be built back just like it was. This is an appalling approach to redoing a house. If every house in Franklin had had this approach to be, quote, rehabilitated, historic Franklin would be a Disney facade. So I'm really, what is it? At this point, as old as historic zoning is in Franklin, pretty stunned at this. And I've gotten a whole lot of phone calls. So my position will be build it back like it was. I can remember when the new roof went on this house, we had an emergency meeting and they needed a new roof. It was when Miss Rhodes lived there. I don't think the roof was that, I don't know, 15 years old maybe, so.
There was one section that we kept because it didn't look rotted or anything. That may be so we kept all of that section. But yeah.
I'm having trouble seeing that section, but I believe you.
Okay, yeah.
Okay,
Well, I'll just be brief. I think I echo what my fellow commissioners are saying. I think the thing that's so disappointing about this one is that, I mean, things happen and sometimes people aren't aware of the guidelines and the rules, even when they are obligated to be. But here we had extensive meetings about this application and what was permitted and what was requested. So for this to go down like it did, it does shock the conscience in my mind. So I would say put it back exactly like it was would be my reaction to it.
Well, but you're going to have to come back with some drawings
for sure
at the next meeting and show us exactly what you plan to do.
How you propose to do that, but yes.
Those were you'll
need to come back to a voting meeting
Okay.
to do that before we can't just say, put it back like it was.
Right.
You'll have to come back to the
To the commission.
July meeting and
Yes.
go through this.
It was never our intention to try, I wasn't privy to I was just brought in as the new builder after everything was approved, so I
Well,
didn't.
if you
but,
have
yeah.
plenty of time on your hands, you can go back to a couple of
We're
historic zoning meetings if you want to see the full,
Again, it's
full blow scoop on it. And we've got the minutes here too. So it's, as all have said, it's unfortunate, but it happened and it shouldn't have happened because there was extensive conversation about what was to happen. And but that's where we are, so we got to put it back like it was, and we got to go through a process
Yeah.
for the commission to vote on you putting it back like it was.
And the building, as a builder, I do not believe the building permit that was issued is reflected by what was done.
No, I have enough confidence in the
So
department.
it's my understanding that in order to replace a roof in Franklin, you need a permit on commercial only, not on residential. And I
Mr.
could be
Tosh,
wrong,
would you
but because it was in a
expound on that?
historical overlay.
You would be incorrect.
Okay.
We require, depending upon the roof on commercial buildings, there are requirements associated with that. When we change materials, then we have weight requirements and drainage that have to be met. So, but we're not talking about a commercial building here. When we say replace a roof, we're talking about a roof covering in general circumstances such as the shingles. And in most neighborhoods that we do not permit that. For inspections, people replace their roofs at their homes all the time. However, in the historic district, even to go and replace the shingle to a different type or a different material always requires a visit with the commission and a COA for that. What we're talking about here is demolition of a complete roof system,
Yes,
which
a
was
new
not
roof.
correct, and which was not approved in the documents that we approved for a building permit. It was for the Leo addition roofs as you were discussed and approved in the COA.
And if there is a structural change to a roof, forget historic zoning, a permit would have been required for anything this extensive anywhere.
What we require, like in this instance now, that when this comes back, once they get through the COA process with you guys, then what's gonna happen is they're gonna provide us full structural details of how this is going to go back together before we will approve the permit for that. And so, no, this was not part of what we approved.
And Mr. Tosh, just for my clarification, if my household decided to rip the whole roof structural system off, I would be required a building permit,
Absolutely.
historic zoning or no historic zoning.
That's correct, yeah.
Like I said, when we say replace a roof, in general terms, we're talking about a roof covering, a shingle to shingle. Say Mr. Denton's house, if he replaced the roof at his home, then he would hire a contractor to do that, would not require a permit. But if he
building permit.
decided to alter any part of that roof system structurally, then we require a permit and approved
Right.
drawings before we issue a permit.
Okay, I think we've beaten this one to death.
My
Thank you.
apologies.
Thank you. Okay, discussion of signage, our next item at 99 East Main Street, Sean Sullivan, applicant. Emily. Or I guess we'll let the applicant talk first. Yeah,
Sure.
sorry, put you on the spot.
No worries. I've had some time to prepare. No. Good evening, guys. So we're here tonight to discuss the main signage above the front door of the restaurant that will soon be opening, Bestia Mari. So looking for feedback. It's my understanding that there was some discussion. Just want to get some feedback on what we might want to do, if there's anything that we're doing wrong, or just want to make sure that we got the right approach, since opening days rapidly approaching. So we'd like to get this fabricated sooner than later. And then also regarding the canopy, the existing canopy that is on First Ave, that to my understanding was just put up. It's green in color, and we're just looking to see if that could be perhaps a black awning, which I think would actually fit better with that intersection. I know the bakehouse on the opposite corner is in black. The window mullions of this building are black. The green just seems kind of random in nature, and I think black would just we just feel it would be better suited, but we're open to feedback on that as well. So,
Emily?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this item could not be administratively approved by staff since our guidelines for signs require a darker background with lighter lettering. And this is kind of a lighter background with dark lettering, so the opposite of what we can do and what we can do administratively. And so let me pull up a picture of the other signs that are on the building.
Yes.
So we would recommend to continue using like pin mounted letters like what is seen on the property. So it would have the dark background with the lighter lettering.
are you able to look at across the street at Colicchino, the restaurant? I forgot to mention that this sign is extremely similar in both. I mean, the wood material, the black lettering. Yeah, right there. If you zoom, right there. Yeah. So that's a wood siding with black lettering, and it's lit at night. So that's essentially the feel. I forgot to mention that. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt your. But it's important to note that that's kind of the aesthetic we're going for, and since it's right across the street and was recently done, we thought that might be okay.
And do you know if this sign is the same cedar as proposed?
Yes, and I apologize. I got the note about the cedar. I rushed the contractor. They weren't able to get it done for me, but we could, for the follow-up meeting, we can bring the actual sample just so there's, we're clear of what's going up there. But yes, it would be the same stain, same species, black lettering. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. In the application, there's also lighting proposed, and the guidelines recommend that new light fixtures should not be obtrusive of architectural features, and so we just wanted to note that. Should we do the sign and then do the awning? Would that?
We can.
Okay.
That would be fine.
Okay.
Don't let me forget that. Okay. All right, let me just talk about the sign part of it. We spent some time with the first, this is a different building than across the street.
Mm-hmm.
We spent some time with Mandu, 3 or 4 sessions, I think, trying to get their sign to set a standard for what we wanted that building to have. And that's been accomplished across the front. I think what staff said, I think that's what I would go along with, to have a light colored letters on the brick background and not on the cedar. That's one thing from my perspective. The second thing is the 3 gooseneck lights that you've got shown seem to be too overbearing for that area. So I think you need to have some softer lighting. The signs on the front don't have any lighting. This one may be a little different because you're a restaurant, but I think it could be done softer. So that's my 2. I don't have any problem with the flat cutout letters and the stud mounted on the wall. I don't have any problem with those. But I think the background gives me pause because that's different from what we've kind of established as our standard for the building.
And just so I can understand, when you say softer in terms of lighting, do you mean like smaller as well, like a smaller fixture?
No.
Just
I think the size of the letters are fine. Is that what you're saying?
the lighting, yeah, the light fixtures. You said softer
The lighting, I think a softer, the gooseneck lights that are shown there seem to be too big
Gotcha.
for the area
Yeah,
that
too-
you're trying to light.
Understood. Yeah, so small, a little bit smaller.
Yeah, it's smaller.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my thoughts. Anybody else?
Just in relation to all this, so from a branding perspective, are the 2 restaurants related? I mean, are
Same head chef, same owner. So they are, different cuisine, but same ownership. So yeah,
they? So the branding is similar then?
absolutely. Yeah, that's the goal. Yeah, they're across the street too, proximity.
My only thought is with branding, I mean, do you want I mean, so you go to one restaurant, and it looks the same as the other. I mean, would you not want to have a little bit more, unique branding to what that restaurant is as opposed to the other? That was just
I
my
think,
comment.
I mean, I see your point there. I think I think for us, the white lettering, I see why for, it's the visibility aspect, but in terms of character, it seems our opinion was that it just seems a bit bland. So this, I think, has a little bit more character and speaks to the nature of the restaurant. So that was more important to us than maybe similar branding. But so that's where we stand. I mean, we're not trying to, break any rules or anything like that. We felt that this was just a little bit more character, and with the lighting, that since this is the main corner entry, that it was okay to be maybe a little different. And that as you noted, the restaurant operating at night a little bit more, it's important.
I get the lights.
Yeah. So.
Well, I personally, having looked at our strategy for signage on that building, I don't think it's successful. The building is so stripped of details that you look at everything else in that area and it just looks very friendly, kind of small town looking, and then there's brick and not much detailing at all. So if I were the restaurant owner, I don't love the idea of the two being that similar, but I'm not opposed to a different strategy for the signage, because I was surprised that we approved the stark white at East Spaces. I did not know we had done that.
We did.
But-
It was administrative approval.
Huh?
It was administratively approved.
Okay.
After we set the
Yeah, I
standard
thought
for
that it
Band-Aid.
was to be mortar related. And so that just boings at you like boing. And in my
I agree.
opinion.
It's very stark. It's just very
Yes, very stark.
bland, stark white.
Stark. The other two are a bit more successful, but I would be willing to rethink our signage strategy on that building. And so to me,
So-
heading somewhere in this direction would be okay with me.
Mr. Chair, the all white signage came before my time. So I'm not. I like this better, honestly. I think that the one difference I see, and I pulled up the restaurant, the Italian restaurant across the street, that seems to be almost like part of the header for the door. And the one thing I worry about the way this looks, just from my feedback on the cedar, is it going to look like there's a sign plunked up there? So go look at the pictures, because it's literally set back and encased.
It's under a soffit, right?
Yeah,
It's under
and it's all
a cover.
encased. It looks like it's, whereas the openings next to it all have like those, what look like mullioned windows. So that's my concern about that. But
Yeah, we tried to, and you can see in the detail, we're trying to keep it as thin as possible.
Yeah.
We don't want that projected look, definitely.
Right.
But yeah, you have to have some
personally
back structure,
think
but I
that
see what
this
you're
is
saying.
attractive. So
No comment?
No, I like this better than what's there.
I do too.
I think the lighting thing was a little peculiar to me. I think the gooseneck fixtures are sort of farmhousey to me. I think this building is decidedly a little more contemporary. I think a simple skinny bar.
I was going to say, could we
light
do a
fixture
yeah,
that just
that's
hangs off.
almost very low profile. So
Yeah,
you
like
don't really,
a
yeah,
skinny bar
that's honestly
would
what
be
we were-
more appropriate for here.
On a neck now.
Yeah.
that are-
Honestly, I think that'd be better for the sign. We kind of went back. That was something we were discussing.
Because having
so
3 of those
Yeah.
this big, it's like
I don't
it's
disagree.
a little-
I agree.
It's a little farmy to me, and not in a good way. I don't mind the cedar. I think the rendering's not doing great justice to it, because I think there has to be a little more depth than this shows. But I don't have a problem with what you've shown. I think it'll look better than the rest of it.
And
Brian, do you have any comments on it?
No, sir.
Okay.
So we could maybe bring a revised light fixture and an actual sample of cedar too, just to make sure that it's matching. So, and that would be okay to proposed.
Wasn't there some metal frame around it?
Yeah.
Just
Oh, no. Oh.
Yeah, just a black metal frame around it just to cover like a rough edge. Because again, this isn't enclosed to avoid a rough
Yeah, it's the
saw cut
frame.
edge of that cedar. It just a very low profile metal edge.
And so the alternative here, if it were to stick to the guidelines, I know we've got this standard, but it's not a guideline,
No.
would be they'd come up with like a silver offset letter or something and just put it on the brick.
I mean, the other, on the Italian restaurant, it is hard to read that sign. Because it's really dark on dark.
And it's in Italian.
Right. Yeah. Maybe that's where it is.
It might be.
But, I mean, it's showing there in the day, but as the day goes on, it's hard to read that thing. This, I think, would be hard to read.
I think that's a bit tucked in, and that I think with the right lighting will be, it's tucked in. I think is part of why you lose a little bit of that visibility. So I'm hoping our thought is that it being more proud and in the corner, it hopefully will read better. I also think with our signage package, it's slightly bolder print because that was a little bit thin too, which I think also
it's
makes it
thin.
disappear a little bit. So
This is thin. But that's your brand, so that's fine.
it is a little thin. Maybe we might.
Well, one more. So just to explore a little bit more so with the restaurants, I'm assuming there's more restaurants than this one by this name? Or is this the only one?
This is the only one. In the future, there may be more. Yeah.
So there are no other signage so this would be kind of setting the standard for what you do elsewhere?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Any other ideas that you had that you could present to the board?
This
is it.
I like your feedback. No, I think that I agree with what you guys are saying. I think that it's something we could bring to the follow-up meeting and get feedback if that's right with you guys. And then we just had the awning, right?
Yeah, that's next. Okay,
Yeah.
Emily, to you.
So with the awning, staff is fine with the color change to green, from green to black. But I will say this just as a comment. When this building received a COA, there was like a condition of approval that any signage and awnings receive a certificate of appropriateness prior to installing. And there was not one issued for these awnings. And so with this changing of the color, the awnings also should be brought down. The guidelines state that awnings should cover only the storefront display windows or transoms and fit within their openings. How the awnings are installed currently did not receive a COA and are installed too high.
And that will make such a difference. The awnings look bizarre. They need to come down.
So
The
you
wall.
want the top of the awning to be at the top of the window
Yeah,
head,
window, yes.
essentially.
In front of the glass.
Yeah.
Yes, and that's going to help that whole building and feel more inviting, which is what I think commercial spaces want.
You don't plan to put a sign on those awnings, do you?
No.
Okay.
Not yet.
Not yet, anyways. No,
Not
I'm just
yet.
kidding. I don't know nothing. We're here for the front door sign.
So a question for staff, and this has to do, if you could bring up the image of the sign and how it appears on the brick wall. And actually zoom in, if you would, to that sign. And what you'll notice, so where I think they call that a soldier course. So there's a soldier course of brick above, one above the bottom window and two at the top. So are those considered architectural features that we wouldn't want to cover up with signage?
What would y'all state
Not
in
on this
this?
building.
No, I would want the sign, I'm glad you saw that. I would want the sign to come out and fill the whole space.
Not be in between those two courses
Oh,
of
it could
brick.
be between the two, yes. But do you see how it ends?
You're saying the width of
The
window.
width, the width
Okay.
is when you pointed that out, I started looking at the width. Yes, if it was between the soldier courses and out the width, to me, it fits in the space.
Is that?
I don't think that B would fit.
Yeah, it will
The
be
B
readable.
would not
so
fit.
There's no
So-
space left.
So then, if it came out, to me, that would be an improvement.
Yeah, and if it fits the size of that masonry opening,
So y-
above and below it.
Yeah, so keep the width, make it the width of the windows, right? So the full width, and then do you want it to go all the way top to bottom, or just,
I don't
okay,
know
okay,
that matters so
No.
much.
okay.
Now, my thought was you could actually do away with the cedar background and just have the letters on the building.
Yes.
In between the two courses of brick, the soldier courses.
Yes.
My
Yes.
concern though is because there's a lot of brown in that brick, and that's where I think we're going to lose the signage.
Yeah, but you could.
Then you
change
just
the
go back to
color
white,
and put
white.
Still make me go back to the
a
white.
lighter color on it. It doesn't have to be white. It can be a lighter color.
Not white. We've already tried
Right.
white.
But if you think about it, so
Lime
if you look at the gray, so let's say we
Oh.
don't, I guess what I'm trying to say is, let's say we went not white, right? We start going closer to the black. The black is probably going to read the best. You go lighter, you can see that light gray perimeter, which is this, the rendering isn't showing. It's actually would be black to match the windows, but you can see how hard that would be to read without a background.
Yeah.
I mean, I think a sign would just literally disappear because we would have actually done that. It would have been easier for us just to come with the lettering and put some lighting over it, but we were worried about visibility. That was the main reason for that, the stained wood background, for what that's worth.
Okay. You may want to try some options with have your sign guy do some options for you. Okay, anything else? Thank you. Let's move on.
So are we good to go to the next? Are we able to?
Yeah.
Okay, just want to make sure. All right. Thank you, guys.
I think so.
Thank you.
Okay, next item, discussion of alterations ramp and window doors at 230 Franklin Road, Building 13. David Collier, applicant. Thank you for your perseverance. I'm going to say that to every one of the applicants to follow.
I'm David Collier. I'm with Matheny Goldman Architects, and I'm representing both the future tenant in Building 13 at the factory.
Great restaurant.
Yes, Edge, and also then the developer building owner. So
Make sure your mic is on the green
I'm
button.
sorry, it's on. I'm just not
Is it
close
on?
enough. Yeah.
Okay,
Is that better?
good. Thank you.
Okay. So this is a deviation or alteration from previously approved shell building work. And so this is the old Viking appliance location where they had a demonstration kitchen. And so Etch is looking at going in to this space. So the previously approved shell work had two doors to the exterior, which were being added into two large steel framed, early 1900s industrial windows. So we're proposing to not do that alteration to those windows and then to provide an accessible path from inside the new restaurant out to a terrace, which will be to the right and is part of the development exterior work, so that we have a egress path comes up at grade via a ramp, and then so that you have a path without having to go all the way back out to the front of the building and then come all the way back around. This would also provide a second means of egress from the assembly space of the new restaurant. We are not allowed to take occupants back through
Mr. Collier, would you speak into that microphone a little bit?
We are not allowed to take.
Thank you. That's perfect.
Patrons back through the kitchen area, which the existing door would be part of the kitchen. So this also allows us to meet code for the seating area of the restaurant. And then we're basing the design of the proposed ramp based on the previously approved ramp that's going to be added to the other end of Building 13. And I have a elevation that I've drawn that kind of shows the two together so you can get an idea of how that would look. So that's the design of the shell work that we would emulate at the new location. So that's actually in the works now. They just haven't started that portion of the work from the shell work. So this is the bottom elevation is the left is the approved shell ramp and handrail, and then on the right end is what we're proposing to do in lieu of what was previously approved. So rather than altering the two large windows in the center, we would do a single window down on the right and then ramp up from the existing floor level to the level of the existing sidewalk. And that just gives you an idea of the new restaurant layout. And then that is a photograph of the existing sidewalk. So we would come in and basically split the 8-foot sidewalk in half and add a ramp against the building at that, and it would start at that window right there in the foreground.
Which window is it? Is it the smaller one or the larger one?
The smaller one.
Okay.
And depending on the relationship of the sidewalk to the existing finished floor, we might be able to do a ramp that's less than 1 to 20, which would not require handrails because that's not considered a handicap ramp at that slope.
So the ramp goes down and not up?
Goes down.
The ramp would come down to so the finished floor inside that portion of the building is anywhere from 14 to 20 inches lower than the sidewalk on the outside. So if you went down this sidewalk to the entrance off of the parking lot, you come down a set of steps, go in the door, and go about 20 feet, and then you go down another set of internal steps inside the building to get to the floor level. So
That sidewalk that is existing is a ramp.
it's level.
That's level?
That's level.
Okay.
It undulates a little bit and pitches towards the right to the catch basins.
Okay.
So we could cut in and put the new ramp between the existing drainage and the face of the poured concrete wall.
So you're asking to trade the two doors that were going to be cut into the triple windows further down for a single door right there.
Yes.
And the ramp, obviously.
Yes. And then we're basing our design on the one that's been approved on the other end of the building.
This end.
Yeah. I don't have a problem with it. Does the staff have some
Staff, do you have any
comments?
comments?
So, from this photo, we can see Jameson Station in the background. So this will be seen from Liberty Pike. And so this will be, a facade that is going to be altered, and the guidelines do recommend against that. And we had needed clarification on which window that was proposed to become a doorway, as we just weren't clear from the plans on which window was going to be utilized.
Yeah, okay.
So one thing I'd like to point out on my elevation drawing, I've dashed in that retaining wall so you can get an idea of how much of that window that's
You're looking
altered.
really down slightly from Liberty.
Yeah, so if you'll kind of zoom in, that heavy line across there is the top of that retaining wall. So you have an idea of how that will, basically you'll see yeah.
No.
So I've tried to be as minimal in what we're doing.
Okay. Josh, you got anything? Brian, you got anything?
Just trying to understand, so when the ramp goes down, you're saying that the actual floor of the restaurant or the kitchen sits below what we're seeing on this sidewalk?
Yes, the existing building finished floor is lower than the actual sidewalk.
So it will go down as a ramp and then go back up steps to continue
Yes.
on? Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Tyler, you got anything?
Nothing additional.
Mary?
So you're doing the ramp for handicapped accessibility.
Yes, ma'am.
And so when you go through that door, you're going to be on the ground floor of Etch inside.
Yes.
Yes. Then I think it's a good solution.
Yep. Yeah, I don't have any problem with this. I think it's fine. I looked
Okay.
at it, I went out there today and looked at it.
Okay.
There's quite a lot of work going on there.
Yeah, and we're not actually the architect for the shell work, but we're really happy to be involved in what's happening out there.
It's a great project.
Yes. Is there any additional information that I might need to provide when I submit officially that would help?
The materials,
Yeah.
I don't know if you identified those.
If there's going to be a rail, we typically see that.
It-
Sure, we'll see a sign
Yeah.
eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got a place for
Or
it.
they will.
Yeah, somebody will.
Okay.
You might want to take some pictures looking from Liberty straight in, just
Okay.
to show that there was a question about the grade change, so.
Since you asked about the sign, can I go ahead and talk about that? Just to get your input?
Does this meet some of the sizing of the 80 plus that we approved before?
Yes, so the approved shell sign, that right there is the approved size based on what we were provided. So the new sign would go within that boundary, and it would be a cedar background with edge to match their branding downtown
Is it going to be over above
in Nashville.
the new ramp?
No, it'll actually be
Right there.
right there, which is the approved location from the shell. So I didn't want to deviate from what was already approved by y'all.
Which is just to the right of the main entrance into that part of the factory.
Yes, which is not accessible.
Yeah.
So
So how, Etch goes all the way to that point? It's in the old Viking?
yes, the entire old Viking
Okay.
store. And the kitchen will be back on the alley side. And the seating will be up front. We're not going to cover any windows across the front. It'll all be open, exposed. You'll get to see the character of the space.
It'll be well done.
The only other thing that I would point out is on the side, on the end, there's a cooler. We're not going to change the window, but we would like to put a temporary film so you don't see the end of the cooler in the kitchen. But the window would not be altered other than a frosted film on the inside just to conceal that end of the metal.
But it can be removed.
Yes, anything like that we're going to do will be removable because if the restaurant isn't there 2 years from now, they just peel the films off and we haven't altered the character.
Yeah. Hopefully that won't happen. Okay. I think we're good.
All right, I appreciate
Thank you
y'all's
very
time.
much. Thank you. Okay. Next, number 9, discussion of demolition at 1309 Adams Street.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, staff, I'll try to talk as quickly as I can.
Thanks for your perseverance.
Well, happy to do it. He had lost his mother, so that's the only right thing to have done. I think no one has any more intent of keeping Franklin intact than I do. I mean, I was one of the original members that fought controlled growth, so you know how much I love Franklin. My grandmother was born in 1885, and her grandmother before then. And recently, I've had to part with some of the linens that my great-great-grandmother used to sleep on and the bolster pads because my house, I had an electrical fire at my house, and so everything was destroyed, including about 19% of my body. So we have done everything that we possibly could, first of all, to get our hands on the property before it became in such a ruinous state. Did everything, even trying to work with the lifetime estate holder to keep it in shape. I think shortly after it finally came into our hands, which it took us 2 years and tens of thousands of dollars to get the children out of the homestead a year and a half after their mother had passed. So immediately upon attaining the property, my niece immediately sought contractors to see what could be done to the house and how to renovate it. Two of the contractors turned us down and would not touch it because we did not want it torn down, because the foundation was in such poor shape, and it was to the tune of like, okay, we won't touch it with the 10-foot pole raising the foundation for under $200,000. And so some said, well, we can put a structure back just as it is, for a little bit more than that, because I think it's a little bit maybe over 1,800 square feet. Subsequently, we have gone again to another structural engineer, and they all say that if you go in, I mean, you're talking 200,000 plus just to pull all of the planks up, just to pull all of the drywall and everything in the house would have to be torn up. And then whatever in excess it would cost if there's even more rotten wood under it. And so I said, well, can you go into a house? Because I remember my uncle's widow had spent like maybe $30,000-$40,000 trying to raise something, probably made a much bigger mess trying to stick rubber under it when there was no place to go under the house to try to salvage the house and keep it. So it just seems like at this point, what we can salvage is some of the brick inside the house. Of course, there are just beautiful, some of the woodwork in the house. We could get that and renovate it. Our intent is, because I mean, we used to spend it all the time. One of our best friends lived next door, and my twin sister, unlike me, was an officer. So, they used to get together, do floats and that. So the historical preservation is everything to us. I will restore a three-legged chair if I find a fourth leg that can make it work. But it's just economically, it has not been feasible to do anything but try to maintain that bit of woodwork that's in the house to put in another house to be completely redone as it is, because it's a lovely structure. We knew someday that it would be inherited by somebody, and just knew it would be the perfect place to live. But I mean, it's just economically far-fetched for us to try to do that, and then put the structure back. And the dollar figures that, I mean, what we got was pretty conservative based on what someone else wants to offer you. And we own the land. And so that's the reason why we continue to come back to it being torn down. We've been trying to get a permit to do something for about the last 3 or 4 years, because we first went to the city. Well, they didn't know, okay, tear it down. And I think the reason someone had said tear it down was that it was 65% gone. Well, another 2 or 3 years has gone on when my niece, Rachel Francis Calloway, she's a Felix now, Rachel Calloway Felix, was trying to, get a permit so we could do something. So, of course, the longer it sits there, the worse it becomes. I mean, it's a beautiful structure. We love it. Rachel is very happy and thinking about raising her children now that she's a mother in Franklin. But it's just economically, we feel a bit much to ask us. I mean, we're just talking about a foundation. You haven't put one wall back, one drywall back, with the windows would have to completely be, remolded to put it in. And so we rather put it in a structure and do the molding to get it back in a livable state as it is. I mean, it was just, every structural engineer comes, I see where it was condemned. And I said, yes, but the question becomes, it was condemned because it's in such poor shape. Is it inhabitable? I can't speak. And no, it isn't. It isn't. I mean, you're talking to the tune of something that could be put back for maybe 4, 5, even less, to 700,000 or more. just because of the foundation and how it's just in the ground. I mean, you couldn't even go under the house to try to structurally see what's going on. I mean, I would love to save the floors, and of course, we can take the wood out of the house and put it in another house, because we've done some things like that before. But it's just, again, we're just asking that we please be allowed to tear it down and put it back as it was.
Okay, Joey?
Thank you. As we're all aware, part of why historic districts exist is to really vet every demolition request with a fine tooth and comb, because the preservation of buildings is why we are sitting here today. So we do take any sort of demolition request very seriously. The applicant did supply a report from a structural engineer, and in the report, to kind of summarize, they do cite the foundation as the kind of principal issue with the building that is affecting the walls, the openings, the roof itself. And here's the photograph of the front of 1309 Adams. It is also a contributing structure to the Adams National Register Historic District. So they've just provided photos that the engineers were able to take while inspecting the property. I'm gonna, if I scroll down and get to the interior photos. So here are the photos of the foundation, and I am not a structural engineer, so I cannot really cite exactly what is happening in these photos. But if you, the report does give a good overview of the various issues with the property. Some more interior shots. And there is interior water damage, as you can see there. And the applicant has also supplied two options, or two kind of monetary options of what it would take to either, I assume, restore the house or to just tear down and build back new. They have not been labeled as which one is which, but I assume the one that says site demolition is for site demolition of the property. So they have estimated that option to just wipe the site clean and build back new would be around $280,000. And then for option 2, to restore the home, $760,000. Now, this is only one estimate that we've received. We have not received other estimates from many other contractors that they may or may not have been in contact with. And let me just pull up. So the criteria for demolition approval is on page 178 of the guidelines. And if the structural instability or deterioration of the property demonstrated through a report by a structural engineer or architect with demonstrated experience working with historic structures, such report must clearly detail the property's physical condition, reasons why rehabilitation is not feasible, and cost estimates for rehabilitation versus demolition and construction of a comparable structure. In addition to this report, there should be a separate report that details future action on the site. So that just kind of goes over what the materials that I just kind of reviewed there. They have not submitted any sort of report on the kind of the future of the site. The applicant did indicate kind of their thoughts on their personal ideas for the property. But again, I mean, demolition is by far one of the things we focus on, especially when it's a contributing structure to the National District. So they have supplied the materials. I still would like to have some more time to review the materials to see kind of what our professional opinion is. I've not been able to also speak to our BNS department as of yet to get their feedback as well about the structural integrity of the home and then what they feel might be necessary to restore the home back to livable conditions. So that's kind of where we're at right now.
Okay, Josh, you want to start?
Sure. I think I'm a hard grader when it comes to demolition, and I think it's
As we all should be. My
Yeah,
great
but
great grandfather.
No, but let me just finish because
Please
we've all
finish.
been here for a long time, and I want you to have the benefit of my thoughts on it. The ordinance is very specific about what we have to even get to a discussion about whether or not demolition should be entertained. And my reaction to reading the report from SEI, which I know those engineers. I've worked on matters where they've been involved before. I think things that I would just call out that give me concerns about proceeding with demolition based on this is it talks about it's a cursory assessment. I mean, this is a very limited assessment by them, and you can see that from their invoicing on it. And they don't, at least on my read, necessarily recommend demolition. They give a plan for restoring the property in the recommendations. And then on the estimates that have been received, is the estimate, we've got one for let's see. I'm just looking here real quick.
There was a discrepancy in the address.
Yeah, so I'm assuming it's the same address, but one is the budget that goes all the way through putting the backsplash and the cleanup and pressure washing in the
Okay,
mailbox.
that's probably part of the estimate for my house, so I guess I don't know how Rachel put that in.
It's
I'm not sure.
$761,011. It's plan, survey, or builder's risk, permit. I mean, it goes through the whole thing down to door hardware and cleanup and a builder fee. And then there's another one that is construction work, and that's $280,000. But I can't tell. I just can't tell what that is, either one of them. I think there's got to be, if anybody's going to come and ask for demolition, I think it's got to be crystal clear, like it needs to lay out, because there are different means by which you can ask for a demolition approval under our ordinance, different standards, some of which require different things. And I don't think that we as a commission ought to be guessing as to which path you're traveling, or if you're traveling multiple paths. So I would just say, before the voting meeting, be very clear, go through that ordinance and lay it out, make it simple for us so we can understand it. And then we really need to understand, and if it says it's got to be in a report, really it should be in a report. Like, we need to be hearing from those people that's what the guidelines and the documents that we're supposed to govern ourselves by say. So I would just say this is one where cross your T's, dot your I's, and don't leave us or staff guessing, because it's a big ask, and we and staff ought to be very careful about it, and we need to not be left with question marks. And from what's been submitted, I just don't see how we're anywhere close to making a decision in favor of demolition from my perspective.
Okay, and not to cut you off, I mean, one of the things that we have depended on is the structural engineers and have presented, the information to them. I think Rachel has spoken with Miss Emily, and so, I mean, we have very, very much thought these structural engineers, because they have represented themselves as being able to say, save it, demolish it. And so I fully understand. Detailed report, crystal clear, no guessing. We will look at the standards and ask them to please make their assessments based on the standards. Anything, excuse me, I guess can be saved, if it's but.
Well, and there
but
are certain provisions that relate to estimates, and that's where we need to see what those are. They need to be prepared and presented in the way that's required, and we need to understand what they're for. So if one is for an alternative to build a new home there, it needs to say it real clear for us. And likewise, if it's related to rehabilitation, I think it needs to say it very clearly. That's my perspective on it. But that's why Jim turned to me first.
Living versus.
All right, Brian.
So construction costs are shocking today. There's no doubt about that. To Josh's point, you get a structural engineer today and some contractors who are accustomed to dealing with new homes. I mean, when they see an old house, they think, let's just get rid of it and put a new one back. It'd be at the same cost. But we're talking about in historic district, because we all know that. And if we were going to see some estimates, I'd like to see, from contractors who are accustomed to dealing with old houses, not one, with new houses. I'm not a structural engineer, but I have been in a lot of old houses, underneath them, in the attics, all over the place in old houses. So the photographs I'm seeing that show inside the attic portion, that wood looks to be in good shape. You look underneath the house, and there were a few of the floor joists that look like they probably had post beetle damage or some kind of termite. All that can be repaired. This would be extensive. You're talking about, gutting the interior, finding out, what it is, probably a new continuous foundation under the entire house, leveling up, sistering lumber to the new lumber to the old lumber. But, an old house like this could be saved. And I want to bring up a couple examples. So if you're on 3rd Avenue South and you're headed out of town and you're about to cross the railroad track,
I know exactly where you're talking about.
and you look right to the right, I had some people that looked at that house to buy it when it was in bad shape, and they wouldn't go in it. And so they asked me if I would go in, and I did. The actual floors had separated from the seals. They were actually on the ground, and they were able to save that house. And another example is one a couple doors down where Miss Hazel Scott lived. That house was in, I don't know how anybody lived there, and she had lived there. And yet they saved that house. That house sold for over $2 million.
The blue house?
Yeah. So there is value in that historic material that you would have left. And I think that you would have a very valuable piece of property when it was all said and done. And those are my comments.
Even more valuable piece of property. It's very valuable, or pretty valuable. Not in Williamson County standards and what things are going for. But yeah, I agree. Okay, so we will get everything to you. Because, if it can be saved, then fine. But from everybody that we're talking with, and we will get some of the historical restorers of the properties to see what they have to say. But the information that we have been able to get, just, structural engineer, we thought that this company was, much better than the first company, and had some experience. And so we'll just go back to the drawing board and try to get you what you need.
What do you got, Tyler?
No, nothing really more than they said.
Yeah.
I concur with what both of these guys said. It's a really high bar. I don't quite think you're necessarily there yet with the materials we've seen.
Okay.
I think the most compelling thing I saw was that the city of Franklin, if they officially said it was 60 or 65%, and I don't know if that's yay or nay, but I thought, well, that's more compelling than the structural engineering report. Structural engineers are ambiguous by nature. Because they can't really speak in absolutisms. I'm an architect. I don't speak in absolutisms either. It's just like, yes, anything can be saved for an expense.
Exactly. That's the phrasing.
And so it's hard to get anybody to say, this thing is terribly dangerous. It needs to come down. I think the only way an engineer would ever say that is if it's going to fall on the neighbor's property. Because if it falls on itself and nobody lives there, they'd go, well, that's just not dangerous. So it's just a really, really high bar to go down, structurally speaking. I don't know if Mr. Tosh had a comment on the
He knows the property.
condemnation.
As far as it being posted, that posting was not for people to come in and assume we were saying demo the property. Based on the engineer's report, if I remember correctly, and it's been a minute since I've read it, I want to think he referred something to the effect of it was like 51% of the building and systems And so when we say systems, we're talking about electric, plumbing, mechanical, plus the building structure itself would have to be addressed. And so anyway, what we want is, we just want to know that if someone were to choose to move back into it, we just want to know that it is safe and habitable for a family to move into, for anybody to move into. And primarily that's the reasoning there. And then hopefully it aids this conversation so we can get some resolve to it at some point.
So when we talked to the city of Franklin, originally they said that it was 60 or 65% gone. And there was another house that we had, and we easily got a permit for it to tear it down. That was in Old Hitchyville. And then when it got to this one, I mean, we realized that it is in a historical area, and tried to move, as quickly as we could, because, we
Yes,
weren't.
ma'am. I can't speak to the 60 or 65% because that hasn't, I haven't been there to make that evaluation, and I don't know who that conversation occurred with.
I want to say this. To build something back that is in keeping, using the materials that are going to be acceptable is going to be extraordinarily expensive. And I would argue more expensive than rehabilitating it. So I think it's a matter of, when Joy was reading it, it was from people that were experienced, and I would lean into that. I don't know what house was torn down in Hinchyville. I can't figure that out, but I can't remember a house being torn down in Hinchyville. But the minute you tear this down, it's going to be extraordinarily expensive to build something back that's acceptable. And when that new house is built back, it will never have the value of a historic home that's been rehabilitated. That's just
Or the feel.
how it is.
I agree with all of
Thank
that.
you. So
I can't add anything else to what has been said.
Mr. Chair,
So,
can I just say?
Other than this, I think these two estimates, I don't understand them. So, I mean, one of them that says 1904 Adams Street, it looks like demolition, and it looks like erecting a new foundation and labor and framing labor for a new floor. Other than that, that's it. That's it. The other has got all the bells and whistles in it to, I guess, to rebuild the house or build new. I'm not sure. It's unclear as to what that's supposed to be. So I think we just got to dig deeper on the structural evaluation too. And it looks to me, based on what SEI has said in their recommendations, that you have to demolish the existing foundation and construct a new code-compliant foundation system, which means raising that house up. And so I think we need to see what the cost of that is.
Right.
So those are the
So
kind
I'll
of.
go back with the structural engineer, and hopefully maybe someone can be here to better articulate what's going on next time. And then also.
That's fine. I think he needs to write down what's involved with all of that and give us, as Josh said, crystal clear information so we know what to do. I mean, I know the house. I've been in the house. I live 5 doors up south of the house. So I remember when Ms. Gosi was there. So I've been in there several times. But it's a great piece of property.
It's a magnificent piece of
It's
property.
a great, and I'm delighted that it's in the neighborhood, and it's just got to be fixed
Yes.
correctly. So
Yes.
that's the big thing, within the context of the neighborhood.
I don't know exactly how we did it because we used a preservation contractor, but the supports, the floor system, floor joists, everything at the Macklemore house was gone. And we were able to fix it. I know Miss Rudy Jordan did several houses on First Avenue that had the system gone. So to me, there's just a lot to save there.
Okay, I think we've worn it out. Thank you very much.
One more quick point just from
All right.
staff. I think what would be beneficial for both staff and the commissioners is a report, a financial report of just how much it would be to stabilize the house, and not a full renovation, but to stabilize the historic house as
Oh,
it is.
that's a good point.
That's a great- okay.
Rather than all of this with the shower doors and
Right.
all the other stuff that
Yeah.
was in there.
Yeah.
That's
then
exactly right.
Yeah, and I've
Yes.
mentioned this before, but I do think it would be very helpful to the public for us to have, and I'd be happy to help work with staff on it myself, have some sort of an application form for a demolition request that tracks the three, I think there are three different avenues by which you can seek it. Because really, there ought to be, check the box. Do you have these documents to support your request? And if you don't, it doesn't really need to move forward from my view. So I
Well,
just,
I could not agree with you more because it's been based on, what we're hearing and, the structural engineer reports and, so that would really be a big help. But,
Okay.
okay, back
Thank
to
you so
Zone
much.
Boy.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I need to excuse myself. I've got to drive to Lexington and take a boy
enjoy
to
it. Get
college
that- that's
orientation
right.
tomorrow morning at 7:30. So,
Thank you.
yes, thank you all.
Don't tell him everything you know about college
I
life.
definitely won't.
He's not.
Although I think he's
can't
pretty
be
wise.
that old,
I think he's pretty wise. To that.
Is he going to UK?
Yeah, he's going to UK.
So,
And
Go
one
Big
of,
Blue.
one of his college classmates is going to Ole Miss, so.
That's right. Exactly. Several.
But that's a whole nother, we're off topic.
Appreciate it.
We've got this lady back in the back that has been waiting.
Go Cats!
Sorry. Are you me too?
Are you?
All right, discussion of, what are we, oh, wait a minute, number 10 was withdrawn tonight, 264 Natchez Street. Discussion of addition principal at 1303 Adams Street, Hannah Terry.
She went to WKU first, I'd say.
Yes, we worked for the same person, Neil Downing.
We did,
Oh, my goodness.
long time ago.
Okay,
Hi, hello, welcome.
Hannah, welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for your perseverance.
Of course.
Yes.
Just able to,
I know you've soaked up a lot of knowledge sitting there.
I feel very smart now. I really do. Okay. So we are back. We've included some extra elevations per your all's request. We're sorry about that the first time. That was my fault. And then we've also included an additional option to kind of go over with you all, in addition to the original design that we proposed the last meeting. So our main question here, coming into it, was what was the actual historic footprint? Because the whole 50% of the historic footprint versus, where should we take that from? And Joey actually sent me an email that was very helpful, confirming that the historical footprint was 2,167 square feet. So the little addition on the right was technically not historic. So we moved forward with 2,167. And looking at this first option that you all have seen before, it includes a bedroom, a bathroom, an attached garage, and then a mudroom hallway that leads you to the existing house. And everything would match the historic house as far as the exterior materials go. And this option, per the site and all the 35% lot coverage requirement, we are well under that at around 13%, depending on if we're including the porches or not. But the house itself, not including the driveway and stuff, is well under that percentage. So here, sorry, I'm jumping back and forth. You all had mentioned, the thought of being able to see this garage versus not being able to see it, the attached versus detached conversation. And we feel like because you can't see the rest of the renovation in this option, the garage, because of also using the materials that could match the existing, it would look like it had been there. And so with the second option, we completely hid it behind the house. So from the front elevation, you can't see any of the addition except for part of the roof, which is still shy of the existing roof. So just trying to take this a step further and still provide the owners the room that they need in order to house their family that they have, but also trying to and attempting to stick to your all's guidelines, which are set for a lot of different reasons. So we wanted to kind of get your feedback on this option to see if this is something we could move forward with, or kind of talk through the two options to see if there's any other thoughts, questions, concerns that we could work with. We still understand that we are not below or right at 50% of the historic footprint. Because of that, and the 418 square foot addition that was attached or built on somewhere in the 80s or 90s, we don't really know. That still leaves us with around 600 square foot to add on, and that is practically just a garage, and that doesn't really help the client or help anyone. So we are proposing an addition of 1,289 square foot without including the deck that they want. They want a cover deck, but understand that because we're over the 50%, we won't cover the deck and we'll just do the added bathroom, bedroom, and garage. And that still leaves us still about 59% coverage. Not coverage, but 59% instead of 50. So, and then that's for the first option. Sorry to be confusing. I'm jumping back and forth. The second option is only 1,107 square feet. So we reduced it by a couple hundred square foot by changing it and rotating the garage. The rest of the plans kind of remain the same except the mudroom. So with this, we reduced it by a couple hundred square foot just to get as close to 50% as we possibly could. So would love your feedback on this and your thoughts, questions, concerns.
Brian? Oh, wait a minute.
Yes.
Emily, excuse me.
Thank you. So yes, this is an application that the commission has seen before, and I want to thank the applicant for responding to some of the feedback that was given both by staff and by the commission regarding the footprint and location of the garage. I'll go to the first option first. This is essentially what was submitted to historic last time, but
Correct.
the difference is that the deck would not be covered. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so this lot footprint would be about 59% of the historic footprint of the house. In terms of the materials and style and windows, I think all of that is very in keeping with the historic home. So no really comments there. And then with this alternative option that was submitted for this evening, you see everything has just kind of been tucked in behind this smaller addition to the left of the main form of the historic footprint. So everything's tucked in behind there, and then the garage is further back and then side facing, not front facing. And the one thing I did kind of want to highlight is the dormer on the garage here, which is similar to in both options. It's kind of different, facing different sides. I did want to hear some feedback from the commission or the committee members here this evening on that, just because I think all the other windows are in keeping with the style, but that was kind of the one spot that I didn't really know if that was in keeping with the more kind of low-key Victorian that this is. But in terms of lot coverage, I'm jumping around as well, so.
It's hard not to.
It's past 7. So this one is only, by my calculation, about 51% when compared to the historic footprint versus the first one at 59%. So this would be more in keeping with the guidelines at the 50% rule of the historic footprint.
Okay. You want to start?
Yes, I appreciate it, and I'm thinking staff is supporting the option, the second option.
The option 2 is definitely better in lines with the guidelines. So we're not providing recommendation this evening, but just from our review, it is more in keeping with the guidelines.
Okay.
I have to agree with that. I think that would be more in keeping with the historic property. And I think to have that garage at the back, the owners might actually like that even better too. And I would be for that 51% more than for the 59 or the 73.
Tyler?
I think I agree with the option B. I like both plans, seem well thought out, but, when we read the Department of Interior standards, they talk a lot about garage doors facing frontal and how they would rather you not, and 2 doors versus 1. And so that putting it behind makes a lot more sense. Roof line perspective, silhouette, talk about the hyphen. It does all of those things naturally, which I think is just a better for the neighborhood, the silhouette of the house, all of the above.
Yep, I would totally agree with option 2. I think, I think it helps you keep the view of the historic house. Going up and down Adams Street, the roof line is roughly 2.5 feet below the main roof of the house. So I think it's a win-win. And you're going to clean up a lot of the back anyway with that stairwell that's back there, that wooden stair that comes off. So
Yes, all of that.
It needs to come off.
Yes.
But so I think it's a great alternative.
And per staff's request, so on the shed dormer windows, if you could just bring, what you'd really like to do, more than just kind of rudimentary lines drawn in, that would be helpful.
Okay, like a spec.
Yeah,
Something.
that'd be great.
Sure.
Thank you.
No problem.
Anything else?
What is, is there any visibility of those windows from the front? I don't
Of
think.
in option 2?
Uh-huh.
No, they
That's what I
face
thought.
completely towards the back.
It goes toward the swimming pool.
Yes.
How about that?
Oh,
Okay.
what I'd say too is, I know Metro ascribes to this, but it comes from Department of Interior standards too, that dormers can't be more than 50% of the roof mass.
Yes.
But if it ends up being rear facing, do whatever you like. Feel free.
And it is a large lot, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's a huge lot.
it's huge. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that was the 13%, I think.
Yes.
13.
Well, I think option 2 is actually smaller than that. I think it's like 9% or something. So
It's a big lot.
it's a big lot. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you're still not going to tear down what is now the garage or carport or whatever it is
Gonna
back there.
keep it. So technically, from the front of the road, you'll still see that.
Yeah,
If we go
that's
with
fine.
option 2.
All right. Okay. Anything else?
Thank you.
We're adjourned.
Thank you
I'm
so
not even-
much. Thanks for your all's
Thank
time
you.
too. I
Thank
know.
for your time.
Of course. I was, answering emails, doing what I need to do.
That's a great alternative.
It's a great